Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent
Everybody,
Tartarians.
welcome to the show. I'm Andreas. Raphael is with me. How you doing, buddy? I think this
Doing
feels
perfectly, thank you. And you?
Oh, I'm good. I spent way too much time studying medieval German
Tartaria.
medieval German witch trials specifically.
Yes.
Yeah, but basically it all came back to Tartaria, wouldn't you know it? And Islamic talismans, that was one that got me. But really quickly, I wanted to say, you saw that Elon Musk is in charge now. He's large and in charge of the Twitter. He's walking in this morning. Did you see that?
Oh, really? That already happened. I just heard that again. It came up in conversation, and I'm still surprised how one-dimensional the conversation was. But fill me in on the most newest details.
Well, the most important of them, I think, and I got to credit Eddie Lin for bringing this to my attention from Think Tank, was that he comes in to work. He brings in his own sink. He's bringing his own sink with him to work. That's him with his own sink. I don't know. That's all I got. That's basic. To me, that's interesting. Elon Musk enters the Twitter HQ with a kitchen sink. Musk also changed his title bio to Chief Twit. So there's that. I don't know. I thought that was pretty good, though.
I
The
would
sink.
like to know what the symbolic meaning of that is.
Synchronicity. No, you don't think so? There's probably a better.
I'd love that. I'd love that. I just kind of think that exceeds Musk's capacity, but maybe it doesn't. It's possible.
It's pretty autistic.
I mean, what could be interesting, and I don't know what your view on that is, but what is the group actually, that's supporting him? Because it's obvious. I want to bring this up again, like Doc Jonas always says, he's not acting alone.
Right.
Who's the group? Who's the players? What's the ideology behind him? What's the elite power faction supporting him, or what's the grand plan? That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah, I'd like to see how he handles Kanye. If the two of them were working together, let's see what's going on. Let's just have to wait a little while, see how this American movie plays out.
A good movie, yeah.
Right. Wait. So, before I go into like a rant and just start screen flowing, what have you been up to this week? How you been?
Oh, I've been great, thank you. There's nothing too particular to share except that we're organizing, let's say, more a magazine. Actually, we're doing a magazine, to be very specific, digital magazine for like nonprofits, associations, but not like Ford Foundations type, but more like all kinds of different things, from helping your neighbors out to like there's by now people actually adults teaching adults and children how to see without eyes. Maybe you know about this, right? There's even these particular schools, I think in Russia they're quite famous or popular. But there's these groups everywhere now where basically if your child is, I think, below the age of 12, they can easily learn how to recognize colors and even read with closed eyes and, I don't know, 3 layers of whatever, so they couldn't possibly see. So we're putting that together. But there's even what many people don't know, because of course for the magazine we did interviews and so on, that especially in Austria, many of the big organizations, even like insurances and banks, are actually organized in, let's say, a communal fashion. Maybe not exactly as an association, but actually as, I'm giving you the proper word, I guess it's cooperative. Let's see. The word is collective, cooperative. Yeah. So even one of the biggest banks, Raiffeisenbank in Austria, actually is a cooperative initially. And many of the grand institutions now that have become so stale and in a sense, more part of a problem than a solution, actually oftentimes were founded on very advanced principles, I want to say, at least given the imagined mind state of that particular time. And over time, they've become,
Yeah, I always wonder about that, because so many of these, all the guild law, it was designed in order to keep corruption from destroying these systems at the same time as like there are witch trials, and that was something that came up yesterday for me too. Just all of the amount of effort that has to go into trying to keep a society going, because if there's like a long winter and people just decide to start killing each other over it and blaming each other for their problems, you need some sort of a system of cooperative that allows for mercantilism, for agriculture, all these things. I don't know. It's weird. It's because we do want to point out all of the failings in the systems, but it's really hard to find a system that's going to replace it, that's going to be functional, right? And yeah.
Yeah, and it's a big question whether or not, I mean, at least in theory, and I emphasize in theory, many of the principles, even such as constitutional republic or these cooperatives, may actually be working. But again, of course, that is completely contingent on the consciousness and the self-awareness of the individuals that are participating. And if you can easily trick or bribe them, then, you know, even any controls you would have inside of a system, they stop working. Just like in the supposed republics here with the president or whatever, if you, for whatever reason, have someone there that's completely insane, and also in all the other key important positions, they're all in some fraternity or something and support each other, well, the system is broke, even if it had well-meant controls to begin with, which I kind of doubt, because I showed you this Constitution Con thing last time. My supposition still is that all the nation states were already built in a way that they would be easy to control. But at least by now we see that all supposed controls and separations of powers have completely failed. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was another interesting thing, was looking at like the Holy Roman Empire's control over Prussia, Vienna, and Austria and Germany. Just sort of it's just I'm thinking about how Germany was created and turned into a country 100 years ago, but also important to look at
out of these 26 states or something, whatever it was, right? Which is also interesting.
Exactly. But there's like 26 states kind of representing areas that were like nomadic, and they did have tribal interactions. So those things did exist, but then they've been conquered 3 times over.
And then the thing is, did they even all speak German? And even today, even for me, if I would travel, even within Austria, even from the far east to the far west, it sounds very different. And in Germany, that's to the nth degree that I could understand probably everyone, but also because you get used to the dialects and you heard them in some comedy show or something, right?
Right.
But it still sounds very different. And
I like that you didn't call it funny sounding. That was nice of you. Yeah. No, but parts of Germany sound kind of funny sounding compared to other places, you know.
Well, but then again, from maybe dependent from what language, mother language you're coming from. Although also here I would ask the question, just because I had recently seen maybe
where they're coming from is the funny part. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, no, exactly. Also this. But in terms of languages and what they can actually mean, and if we go along with the idea of David Ewing Jr. or Mario Pras, who's written Prass, and he actually shows this formula once again, where by applying the same formula, where basically you can exchange vowels one time, you can change letters like this, and you can move on the alphabet once. Like there's like 3-4 rules. And as I had mentioned, you just apply them again, you reiterate over them, and then you come from French to Spanish to Portuguese, and it goes up to like so-called Eastern languages, which seems completely unlikely. But assuming that these languages were actually engineered, because he always points out Jesus. And I also always wondered a bit about this, because I had French and Latin in school, and sus in Latin, at least official Latin that you learn in school, means pig. And je, or even here you have the J already, which is a new letter, which is already strange, yeah. And then it would mean something like me pig, or what is this? So I would not put it past the control factor people or whatever to actually put in such super high level mockery where everyone is like, in the name of Jesus, you know? Yeah. So just saying.
Point. Seuss, I remember I was souse is what they call
exactly.
In Ohio. We've got a bunch of, Germanic and Black families that eat souse, and souse is like the cream of pig snout, I believe. And so that
like sauce even.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, maybe. Oh, but it is gnarly. And I remember like seeing that it said raise souse, and it was like, who's souse? Raise souse. And that was like a whole thing. Like, so people do like to eat souse still. But in terms of the language they spoke, there's like 3 or 4, and and there are many dialects, but one of the main ones across from München into not quite Berlin, because Berlin had its own thing going on for at least for the last 400 years. But is Celtic, is my point. Is the Gaelic Celtic language was the most common. And then in regions like Dresden that got conquered earlier, like 200 years, 300 years ago, they're speaking French, but not like modern French, but like what more, and this is something I was talking to David about, and I looked into this and I was amazed, is that the French didn't really speak French in France until the 19th century. But where did they speak French? Germany and Holland. It was actually the most common. And it was, so what was French? Well, it was a Franco, la, 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 la. It was a Latinized Gaelic, Latino Gaelic, whatever you want to Gallo Latin, whatever. So what does that mean? Okay, well, this official language used by this administrative group that was forced on people at a time when, you had to speak it in this area, that spread in these communities. But you can see that they would have before that just been speaking a Gaelic language, and the Gaelic roots in all sorts of German cooking devices. That's the main obvious one. I can't think of any great examples, but the kitchen.
Right. I mean, there's too many examples actually, and maybe if you want to pull up the Telegram and this video that I had sent you, it's only inside Telegram, probably because it's not so easy to find online, and exactly this one.
Is it showing it all big now?
Yeah, it's fine.
Good.
And maybe just try scrolling through, and there should be some graphs somewhere.
How does one scroll a Telegram video? Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. So this guy is Mario Bras. This cannot be heard. He's speaking in German anyhow. So.
Oh, okay. I can go back. I'm fine.
So just to show people there's something directly. There's his name also, Mario Bras. I don't know if any of his stuff was translated yet into English. That would be super interesting. Maybe just skip a bit in and look for the charts.
Man, what an enigmatic guy. This one or further? Table cometh from Tisch. Okay. Table cometh diff von Tafel. Nisha mind you. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Yeah, so here it says Car or Karre. Karre is also like just a word for a car in German, but these are often like maybe not the most official ways to say it, but like a colloquial way of saying things, right? Dream, Traum. Yeah, you have to go a bit further if you can. There should be more of those, and also somewhere he shows the rules.
I want to see if I can get the audio. One sec. All right, I gave up on the audio.
All right.
Hold on. Here.
Oh yeah. This looks good. Here, even this, the AE, which is like an old. This is a whole thing into itself. Like, when did those get split and why? And is this not a huge confusion? Even just exchanging A and E, which pronounced in German would actually be A and E. A-E, A-E. It is huge confusion trying to learn English as a German-speaking individual. And here is basically just, I can't recount all the rules exactly, but here's just showing how that works, and how by very simple steps you can arrive at all different languages. And maybe skip a bit further. Maritime, yeah.
Hold on. This is such a hard. You can't just scroll with Telegram and download this video.
All right, yeah.
It's okay. Woman. Wait, what's the?
Oh yeah. Oh, here he actually says that woman actually, in his understanding, simply means no man. So it's just mirrored, and it just means not a man. Which, yeah, one may think about whatever one will, but to me this almost also seems kind of logical. I was always wondering about this, like, why man and woman, like, strange. Just keep scrolling a bit. There should be 2 or 3 more charts. The rest, anyhow, people hopefully there's something in English, or someone's gonna translate this. Oh yeah, here
Harem
harem,
and Harun.
huren, which means
Oh.
prostitutes, and but even this is very. I mean, I'm not sure if it's funny or not, but have you ever been to the Netherlands or something? And there, when they ask, they want to rent you something, they write verhuur, and from a German point of view, this sounds kind of funny. um, or like a derogatory term or something, but it just means to rent, So there, yeah.
In the German, is it more like Faru is more like what?
Faru? No,
Yeah,
he
you.
says harem. The one word was harem. He just pointed out
Oh,
basically
I thought you said it, but Haru's not like Faru, right? You didn't do like a
no,
F.
no,
Okay, okay.
no, 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 not in this
I'm
case. No.
hearing him a little bit in the background still. Hold on there, yeah.
All right.
Oh, here we go.
Oh yeah, or here he's explaining the correlation between breakfast and Frühstück, and he's explaining how it's the same meaning. Frühstück means breakfast in English. And yeah, he just goes through these. So anyhow, yeah, it's mainly for German speakers, but it's pretty cool because the rules, I guess, they should be. Oh, here with Das and Zeus. This is Zeus. And then
Zeus
he's even moving it to the Russian side by just mirroring it and so on. So, I mean, at least it makes sense to start thinking about it in the systemic way, to at least try and imagine, could it be possible to create languages from a template? And I think, I mean, with sufficient computing power, quote unquote, it's certainly possible. So
computing power, do you just mean like whipping monks? Okay, so check this out. Here's
example.
Here's Thor from the Proto-Germanic Punuraz, right? Okay, so Thor somehow from this weird P that made the F, right? And so that's the first thing to know. Another good one is G used to be an L sound. That's a fun, I don't even want to waste my time. I'll start with this. Hunor, right? Some people pronounce the P as a P still. That's the fun. Por or for. Okay, you get my point. Now let's get to the Slavic association. Slavic association. Well, they got a lot of people. The Celtic Taranis, and then the Estonian Tara. We've all gone through our tar fits, but then there's Perun, right? So Perun. Okay, so Perun is the Slavic thunder god of war. We got that Thor, Porun, Thorun. Okay, then we go to his Persian equivalent, Piran Vaisa, Piran, right? Piran is basically Thor. And it just continues along the way. I forget if you can get the Vedic Sanskrit. Parjanya. Okay, so Thor, Parjanya, every step along the way. And who's Parjanya? Well, deity of rain, thunder, lightning, and one fertilizes you. Okay, so you got everybody doing the same thing. Have you heard of Keith? What's her name? Agnes Sampson. I'm gonna bring this up again later, but kind of like I'm just prepping myself not to forget. Agnes Sampson was the old wife of Keith, the wise wife of Keith, right? And interestingly enough, midwives are like one of the most ancient arts, right, to take care of babies. And if you look in Baalbek, you'll find records of midwifery, of the female. If you type in females, women in medicine wiki, probably, I'm sure that there's going to be a great article about ancient medicine involvement in Egypt and Mesopotamia, 2050. In Presheret, the lady overseer of the female physicians, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you get the idea of Hippocrates into the modern era, right? And we know about midwives. We also know about brewers, female brewers history. I don't know if we'll see a good article there. Women in brewing. Look at that. There's a wiki. So women were in charge of creating these. We talked about beers before and how there used to be more healthy versions of beers before in Hopsgebatten, but there's a whole other thing to this tradition. A lot of it has to do with Islamic talismans. Have you heard of the hand of Mary? The hand of Hamza. The hand of Hamza,
yes,
right?
The Hamza one I know, but Mary, no.
Yeah, so let's see. Hamza, wiki. If you go on Wiki, they'll tell you everything. It's amazing. I mean, I am not trying to sell Wikipedia for actually having truth in it. I'm just surprised when I find it. But if I type in Mary, Hand of Mary, so other symbols, Hand of Mary, Virgin Mary's hand. If you type in Hand of Mary, or Kef Miram, which is the Arabic version, because the Mozarabs in Spain did this as well, you start seeing huge amounts of the symbol of the Hand of Mary, right? And so this is a symbol that all across Europe, into the Celtic areas, they're still using this, right? And then there's that connection again. The Germans and the Celts, the Gauls were all a singular people. I mean, they were nomadic and they were different, but then there's a group called the Latin. So when we think of Latin, we might be confused with the Latin culture.
Oh my, of course. And where would they have been?
Well,
Okay, everywhere. Okay.
everywhere.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Sure, of course.
Well, wherever there are redheads, right? Of course, because they're kind of a Celtic people. But
Mhm.
it's so much broader than that. See, I mean, I don't know. I'm not the one saying this. They're the ones saying this, that it's beyond an ethno culture, because they have a language, but there are variations of the language that are spread into Turkey and into Arabia. Yeah. So basically, Greeks, pre-Gauls, Etruscans, yeah, Slavs, everybody, all part of this major shared culture that is a Celtic culture. And we often think of the Celts, but we should be thinking of their more broad culture, the Latin culture, or the Latin, however you want to go with that. Here's one of their interesting, ornate, talismanic. Yeah. So you see a couple of things here. One, Proto-Arabic. There's no Arabic yet, but instead there's all sorts of symbols that you later find making their way into Arabic talismans.
Yeah.
And also you find it's very similar to like the Indonesian and Thai and Filipino style crowns. So, which is very similar in the way it's designed, even like the pounding of bronze and of metals. So,
but looking at this, even just the floral design in general, because there's lots of, whether you would then officially call it Hungarian or Austrian or any type of folk art style decoration, many of them kind of look like this, you know? So there's like some commonality there as well, which is just like floral style or something.
And
there's
freaking peacocks, man.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
What's the name of that comic book? Asterix. You know Asterix, right?
Of course,
he's got your mustache. Here, yeah. Asterix, the true Germanics, they're not Germanics, they're Celts. You know, a lot of these particular this area, right? But this area is a very large area, from England to Spain to Turkey to Russia. That's a lot. And so the cultural exchange, let's get to what's her name, Agnes Sampson. She did, what's it called, man? The Magic Square. Okay. Can I do that? Can I get this right? Okay, Magic Square. So one of the main things about midwifery and these old wives' tales, beyond the medicine that they had, because so much of the language was stolen, and books were destroyed, they were forced to do things in rhymes in order to memorize them, but also it was a big part of the magic.
I'm sorry to bring this up, but I have to, just very briefly. I'm not sure if we already did this, but the Hexen 1x1.
Oh, yeah. What,
did we speak about this already?
I don't know.
Or just maybe enter it, and let's see if there will be a proper translation. But this is basically the thing where Mario Praz, with his whole language, where he says the coding can actually be found. And this is a poem by Goethe. I wrote it to you in Zoom chat. This is a poem by Goethe. I wish I would be educated enough to be recounting it just like this, but maybe I can actually read it.
Do it.
Let's see.
My mom will give us credit. She loves Goethe.
Yeah. So, so I'll just. Yeah.
Interesting. So the word translates just to witches if I Google. So I'm going to avoid that Google translation for now.
Why? But witches is correct. It's about witches.
Yeah, but you don't want to just call a Hexen 9x1 a witch, right?
Oh,
because it's a maiden that commits hexes. Is that Is
No,
that
ein mal eins is like how you're counting, like how much is 2 times 3, 3 times 3, 4 times 3.
okay, yeah.
This is
See,
called an ein mal eins,
this
like a
matters.
multiplication.
This is a mathemagics. This is
Yes, yes,
mathemagics right here. For the
yes,
love of God. Okay.
yes. So it's brief enough. So it says, die Hexe, du musst verstehen, aus 1 macht 10 und 2 lass gehen. Und 3 mach gleich, so bist du reich. Verlier die 4 aus 5 und 6, so sagt die Hex. Mach 7 und 8, so ist's vollbracht. Und 9 ist 1 und 10 ist keins, das ist das Hexen einmal 1. So this is basically like, maybe you can translate it or not, but it's just like some rules, from 1 make 10, the 2 let go, which is about duplication, and 3 make the same, which perhaps relates to something like some esoteric connection or secret society connection, and then you're rich, so bist du reich. Verlier die 4, so get rid of the 4. Out of 5 and 6, make 7 and 8, and then it's done, and 9 is 1, and 10 is none. So this is more or less rough translation of the thing. But out of this formula, he actually says that he could calculate how the languages were created.
And
of
all
course
of you
within-
kids out there who were like, this is witchcraft, terrible. But then in the back of your mind, you're forgetting that you used to be like, 1, 2, tickle my shoe, or whatever you did, pick, whack, patty whack, nickel on a bone. This is where it comes from. Just reality check. You're practicing witchcraft. Shame on you. No.
Yeah, so just wanted to bring this up, and also because it literally says is the witches, is like this is the magic formula potentially of how languages were created. And of course, within this timeline, then Goethe would be among one of those luminaries that somehow tried to save the knowledge or encode it cryptographically in his books or in his prose, however you would call it, so that hopefully at some point someone could again find it and decode it. Yeah.
Well, looking at the magic square, and this is interesting, where do you find magic squares? And the answer is Tartaria. I mean, they're friggin' everywhere. So magic squares are in China, they're in South America, they're in the pocket of Joseph Smith, they're everywhere. But one of the interesting places, of course, is in Islam.
And just saying whether it's a square or not, don't you in English always always call everything a square, even if it's not a square? Times
Right.
Square, everything square, no?
There
Fair
are-
and square.
Fair and square. Well, that also, but that all does come back from the magic square. And I wish I could I want to find the Arabic treatise on it. But if you start looking into Spain, you start to find these examples, the Mozarabs, Christians, and the Jews and the Muslims all using the Arab square. Here's but in China using the Eastern Arabic numeral system. So you kind of get the point that they're using the Tartarian numeric system for symbology of object-oriented math. Here's using even higher numbers in the Songong. I wanted to see, here you go. Sanskrit, moving into ancient, and then the 6x6 magic square book from the Book of Wonders. So once it gets to Spain, then you start to see that's the Spanish Inquisition, and things start to get destroyed. That's when these things start to become either Christianized or they become more hidden in the midwives culture. And so one of the main uses of the magic square is, and this goes back to Hypatia, is you make a 3x3 magic square and you put it in front of a woman who's giving birth. And in front, you have to put it on a jar that's never seen water, and then you put that jar, the ceramic, in front of her face, and also under her feet. And it's something that's been, there's just the Egyptians, the Jews, the Spanish, the Arabs, the British, the Scots, the Germans. They all said this worked, even ones that were kind of into the 1800s. Mentioning that it, and people that were usually skeptics of witchcraft or were not into witchcraft. This is a very spiritually not into witchcraft time. Even then, it was considered completely socially acceptable to use the number square for the purpose of saving the baby. right? And that was one of the main things. There was a lot of things you did with the square. You had to repeat certain kinds of words and certain patterns, but you also had to use certain kinds of roots and herbs and everything else. So there's like an entire magic medicine culture that's existing at this time, and the people that are doing it eventually get in trouble. That's kind of the beginning. Before we get into like Salem witch trials or anything like that, before you even do like the North Barrack witch trial during King James time, that's where you see Keith. You see the midwife of Keith. There's the Bamberg witch trials, and the Bamberg witch trials are friggin' nuts in every way. Because first off, Bamberg, very fancy place, used to be an Arabic town in Germany, was also a Gaulish settlement before that, as far as we know. So therefore, more of the Tartaria architecture to lead you into that. And in the 15 to the 1600s, they decide to start killing people that they say are practicing witchcraft. And a lot of them say, oh, we're not practicing witchcraft. And so today we're always saying, oh, well, clearly this was just a witch hunt, in the sense that none of these people were witches. But we need to like probably broaden our understanding of the term, because by their definitions, maybe they were, right? I mean, this is part of the deal. They are practicing medicine. They're making alcohol. They're doing all these things that are not necessarily wrong, but they're not the right of common people to do in the state.
What I find interesting here is these poles that they are carrying. Is this like, I'm not sure how it's called in English, Maibaum? So that's the usual celebration that you have. Let's see.
Mayfire or Maybone?
Maypole.
Maypole, yeah.
Maypole dance. Okay, yeah.
Yep.
I'm just interesting that it would appear as if it's at the same time, or at least they have them right next to each other, the people burning and the celebration of fertility, which, interesting.
Right.
Okay.
You're dancing with the Reaper. There's another one, and it's in the title, I want to not forget, is the Haliurunas, which is a very racist thing, I guess. I don't know, but one of the earlier, like the Hell runes, the Haliuruna, which is also from the underworld, the women from the underworld. The British had the same word in Old English.
Whereas, of course, in German, hell means bright.
Right. Yeah. But there's also the old Germanic association with Hades, or whatever the underworld is, whatever that is, like a Tartarus. So not necessarily hell, but the Germanic equivalent, which is a lot closer to Sheol, or the Jewish equivalent. But there's this story of these women who were banished and ended up breeding with the Huns to create. Is that right? Or they created the Huns. So it's the Gothic witches, from a 6th century work from Gothic history called the Getica. The account tells of the early Goth king Philomer, who found witches amongst his people when they had settled north of the Black Sea, and then he had banished them to exile. They were impregnated by unclean spirits and engendered the Huns. Okay, so the Huns are the offspring by this Getica book, accordingly. And in account is a precursor of later Christian traditions where wise women were alleged to have sexual intercourse or even orgies with demons and the devil. And that's where, so these, all of a sudden, they start saying, okay, not only are you a witch, not only are you practicing magic by making medicine or growing plants in a greenhouse in the winter,
but you also had sex with the wrong guy.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty common thing, right? You're like, oh, well.
I'm thinking of the Bible again,
Well, if you're a 50-year-old lord and you've got some like 16-year-old maid working for you, and she's got a boyfriend, and you don't like it, right? You could probably, and this is what seems to have happened over and over again, but there's a lot of other circumstances as well where it's an older lady, like the wise woman of Keith, and she's making the most money selling the most beer, or she's in charge of medicine in general.
Right. She's maybe, against your pharma cartel.
Yeah. it seems like that kind of tends to be the idea. But yeah, so they also say Haliu or Helia, meaning hell, the abode of the dead. So there is the connection there. But that also, yeah, referring to kind of the goddess that walks between the realms, right? It is interesting to me also, the Christianization of the period. So you've got Redvald of East Anglia, who was he was a king of Anglia and Anglo-Saxon, but he was converted to Christianity and then converted back. And so he had a temple where he kept the Jesus statue next to his old god statues. And it shows kind of the culture that was emerging, where it seemed like you could acquire new gods and that they could play well together. And that's something that didn't last. And so the people that were into that, they ended up being killed. People that tried to adopt their traditions. And you can see that's clearly worked for a while before this point, because they've adopted the Sanskrit Vedic god to the Slavic, to the German, to even to the English. I mean, it's very similar to what's going on in Greece and Rome. So there's a unified culture that's being erased all of a sudden, just taken from them. And the main other thing I was going to say is the seal of Muhammad, because then you've got who's related to Solomon and to Muhammad, and they've got this magic ring. And I feel like people don't talk about Muhammad's Green Lantern comic book powers enough, because of all the interesting things about Muhammad. The fact that he has a friggin' magic ring, like in Captain Planet, that can control demons, give him the power of familiars, talk to animals, shapeshifts. I could go on. There's just so many things that this magical ring could do that were in every comic book you've ever read. And basically it works by having a mathematical sigil that is using the name of God and the messenger of Muhammad, or Muhammad the messenger. And then there's I forget the third line is to say here. I forget, but this is, basically this, you can get this ring if you are of the descendants of Muhammad or Solomon, and that gives you a license to control magic. So anybody who doesn't have that ring, who's practicing magic, it's like practicing law or medicine without a license,
I would just like to know who's issuing that license ultimately in this case.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's supposed to be from an angel, but who knows?
So as you're talking about this, so the only case where I looked into this a bit more is the Christianization of Hungary, because they were supposedly, from what I could read up, some federated tribes that could not be conquered militarily. This is now official history. And then in the year 1000, suddenly their king, he's even called, I think, Holy Stephen or something.
Holy Steve, that's such a great name. Holy Steve.
I think his name was Stephen, Istvan, I think, Saint Istvan. And then supposedly everyone converted in the year 1000, just like this. And I'm like, this is a bit a very truncated explanation. And then
Can you imagine like the Y2K festival they had where they dropped the metal ball and they're like 3, 2, 1, I accept Christ into my heart, or something,
They did that. I wouldn't be surprised.
All at once.
So this was like an instant conversion of supposedly an entire culture, which obviously is not how it works, right? And then just because it reminded me of something that Michelle Gibson always brings up, and this is about the whole also like forced Christianization. And she writes, according to Dr. Odlo Zilik, Comenius was born on March 28th of 1592. Almost 100 years to the day that the Alhambra decree was issued on March 31st, 1492, where we are told Spanish Jews were given the choice of converting to Catholicism or leaving the kingdoms of Castile and Aragon. And then it says this decree may have originally applied to the Moors as well. And it is out there somewhere in the field of information that the next day, April 1st, became known as April Fool's Day, because while the Moors were told they had the same option, their ships and homes were burned and many were killed. And this may or may not be true, but I just find the story very interesting. And yeah, wouldn't surprise me either.
Absolutely. I mean, the more you look at the Spanish Inquisition and the Portuguese Inquisition, the connections to this idea of just killing off everyone who, I mean, not just everyone who was into magic, because obviously this was used on wealthy families as well. But it's also interesting looking at the witch trials, the names of the people. Let me see if I can find an example. Salem witch trial and North Berwick. That's it. So which one was it? Pressed to death, daughter. I think is it Osborne? No, not Osborne. Was it Good? Good, I think. Yeah, Dorcas Good. So they killed the mother, and then Dorothy Good was 4 or 5 when she was accused of witchcraft. There was a sister 20 years later, she was killed. The other one, North Berwick witch trial. Where's the girl? Inquisition. It was a Device, something like that. North Berwick witch trial Device is her name. What happened to? I think her name was Anne Device. This girl comes and she's asked, "Are your parents into witchcraft?" She's like 10 or 12. She's pissed off. She says, "Yep, my mom's a witch." That's the official story anyway. She says it to King James VI in trial, which is not normal. And it's accepted as just true. Now, the girl 20 years later ends up arrested for witchcraft herself and dies in jail. There's so many examples of this where the family members 20 years later or several generations later in different towns or countries are killed for witchcraft. So there seems to be something there to they're practicing something like, so Tituba was a Barbados Arawak who was the first woman to be accused of witchcraft in Salem, Massachusetts. No, most of the time I don't hear as much about her. People ought to bring her up more. What she did was take egg white and put it in a bowl to tell the fortunes of these kids that ended up getting ergot poisoning or, were possessed or who knows what. But her doing the egg white fortune telling, that was just so out of place that they decided, okay, we need to get rid of anybody who comes from the Spanish or French, Louisiana territories, which were already beginning to be settled by this point. This is like 1692, right? So by 40, 50 years earlier, you got French and Spanish settlers, and then everything that comes with that. And so she had come from Barbados and had brought along with her like this culture of divination and fortune telling, which is pretty common around the world, right? But they made it seem like she was just this out of place witch, right?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because I mean it's a nice story. 100 years later, of course, we don't know what really happened, but does it also make sense if there is no political motive, or if what she was doing wasn't extremely effective or something like this? Because otherwise, why bother?
The thing was that the kids got ergot poisoning. We don't know exactly what really happened, like you say, but the deal is that these
I
kids
mean, that's
got
nice
sick.
to say now, of course. Yeah. That's difficult to know now, of course. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, because I'm not saying that it was necessary ergot poisoning. Maybe the kids really were possessed. I don't know. I don't discredit the idea of witchcraft exactly either. So it's possible there was more to it, but there's a lot of evidence that there was ergot because of the weather. There'd been the volcano in Peru, endless summer, not quite as bad as what happened 2 centuries later, but there was a pretty bad winter, and so ergot had been grown, and eventually by January of the year after, there was no more wheat from ergot, so the mass hysteria was less likely to be taking place. So I mean, I can accept how that makes an Occam's razor amount of sense, but yeah, I think there's another character that does fit that better, and that's Sarah Osborne. Sarah Osborne had married one of the Putnam family, John Putnam, a notable family. Actually, I think later on, one of the Putnams married Amelia Earhart. George P. Putnam had married Amelia Earhart, the giant. Look at that, right? So the Putnam family, but she'd inherited his land when he died, and she'd married her own Irish servant, her indentured servant, which was, you get married twice and all that. And then she'd had kids with Putnam, but she decided she was going to continue to own the estate. And that was a big deal in Massachusetts at the time. So there was a bunch of people trying to take each other's property, blame her because she didn't go to church,
That was the other story, what I was thinking about when you mentioned that they set up this girl to snitch on her parents if there was some inheritance. But whether there was or there wasn't, that's always how you do it. You hire someone to do some dirty deed for you, and then a few years later, you make sure that he will never be able to tell anybody about it, or whatever he gained from it, you take it. So.
Yeah, I mean the Bamberg.
And the one other thing that came up, because first was thinking about inheritance, and then I thought about, and this is a big question now, also with all the testing that has been going on worldwide, if someone somewhere actually really is looking for some particular genetics or something. I don't know, but it's an open question.
There's that too. So with Bishop Nittard Tungen, let's see, which one was it? I think Gabastiel, was that the one? They said that no one was executed for witchcraft, but what happened was 1,000 people were executed, and then anybody who was there was forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement. They were put in prison, and then if they told anyone what they saw, they would be killed, which is amazing that that existed at that point. But they forced people to sign these papers that said, we'll cut off your head before we kill you and burn you at the stake if you admit all these things, give us the names of 27 other wealthy people involved. And so they were able to say, well, oh yeah, and you're going to sign over all your property to the church. If you signed over all your property to the church, they'd make it easier for you. So
of course,
yeah. So there's definitely that scenario going on. Pretty gray. Bamberg.
What I'm just thinking of is, supposedly there will be some basis in truth about those stories, but I'm just thinking they could as well just be, the few stories that survive from who knows how many of those.
Right.
Who knows how common this kind of procedure was.
Well, it looks like they were very common, and 1,000 is not that unlikely to happen. But look at the Trier witch trial, the Würzburg witch trial, the Esslingen witch trial. Hey, look, an entire best of hits of the Roman Empire witch trials. There's a lot of witch trials that were going on. 1486, 1609, Germany, South Germany, Switzerland. Yeah, there's definitely many witch trials. The question I have though is mostly how much of this isn't just the simple story. Oh well, there was chauvinism, misogyny. They want to take away the jobs from women. That's an important story. I'm glad we told it. I'm just saying how much of it also is the idea of Francis Bacon, John Dee, characters that are trying to be in charge of magic. There's a reason why the seal of Solomon.
In charge of magic and being in charge of reproduction, which some may even say is related.
Right. Here's a seal of Solomon, the magic symbol that is the 6-pointed star. Here's the John Dee star, which is a septagram, 7-pointed star. Here is the police star in the United States. Where's it at? Shield something. California Highway Patrol something. Give me something. There you go. You can see very common. Yeah. So all the sheriffs get to be in charge of magic and nobody else, right? Because they're endowed
have
with
the
some.
legal magic at least, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but that's the other thing. The idea of magic is probably thrown out of proportion. Just the idea of doing these material rituals, wearing these costumes that endow them with the power, impressing people with symbology, like in the movie Hellraiser. I think these all exist in this sort of, L. Ron Hubbard scientific version of magic that we're living in right now, right?
Almost obviously, yes. It's all symbolism, and that's how the system runs, of course, because people comply just recognizing the symbol before anything even happened. So
where's the thing you just sent me? I'm gonna pull this up. The Burnschaffen.
oh, the Burschenschaften.
Burschenschaften.
Burschenschaften. Yes. Yeah, who knows how magic this is? I mean, looks kind of magic already, if you ask me. Even though it's
Pretty
just,
sweet.
I mean, this is even basic chaos magic on the right side. Intertwined letters E, F, and V.
Weird. So the Boer communities are a traditional form of one student association. What is this?
Wait, let me see. I'll pull it up in German so see what makes sense.
Oh yeah, of course it's translated. So probably
Yes.
it's a form of associate. Got it. It's a one
Yes.
form of student association.
Yes.
The term fraternity is still used today for very different.
But here, just even read this. Where are they? They are in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and in Chile. I mean, what?
I saw that. So the word fraternity means something like totality of boys. The word laud in turn derives from the Neo-Latin bursarius, the resident of a burse, and was in the 18th and 19th century a general term for students. Okay, so what's the difference between a fraternity and a bursary then?
Well, that's a good question. I don't see one like overtly. Have to ask an expert. What I find interesting though is there it says Urburschenschaft. If you go down a bit further, here it says original citizenship for whatever reason. You have to go original fraternity. There you are. So here it says that they were founded in 1815, and what's interesting is that at least later, during the Second World War or before that, they actually got banned in Germany. So that's also interesting because today they are very often, at least in public perception and media, they are usually seen as the most right-wing people that could be involved in politics.
Oh, these are like hyper frat. Okay.
Yeah, kind of. And maybe the particularity would be that at least in some of them, they actually do the fencing. And then some people, have like scars in their face and are politicians. And at least in Austria, it's always a big thing, people like to argue about or something. Yeah, it's curious. I was also wondering like when and how. It's also related, I think, with the whole idea of, German culture and German heritage. But at least in my understanding, it's also something that just somehow appeared in the 1800s, just like so many other things just appeared. I'm not sure if fraternities in America probably are not much older, I guess,
right,
than 1800.
But yeah, and using Greek letters, fraternities are weird. Let's see what they say about that on Wiki. A fraternity, a brotherhood, guilds, Middle Ages,
and then even here, it's the most obvious thing that which fraternity was there before. Even there, you have it already. Order of St. John, or whatever Maltese order looks like on the right-hand side. So, I mean, who came up with the concept first, that you need something along those lines? I don't know.
Right, yeah, it's the Knights Hospitalier. So the idea of a bunch of soldier dudes riding on horseback, the biker gang, a fraternal order.
Yeah, even in official history, they would be the original medieval biker gang. It's true. They're protecting you, smuggling your assets, drugs, or whatever along the along the Silk Road.
I noticed that you guys have seen the Oreo symbology, right? Oreo symbology. Someone had pointed this out, and I thought they did it wrong, but you've got, they usually say it's like a satanic cross and a Freemason sign. What I see is the bicurial, which is, this is often referred to as a Freemason sign. It's not quite, but the cross of Saint Lorraine on this sort of spheroid antenna, which is interesting, kind of the Earth. And this is another one of the example. There's also 12 of these iron crosses that spin around it, which each all have 5 stars, right? Surrounding the 4 cross. And so this is designed so that through the 4 seasons, when you eat it, like it's supposed to make you want to eat it all year round. It's like a good luck charm for the company, right? And it's supposed to, so these kinds of hypno magics that they put into marketing, it's not necessarily that impressive. It's just sort of marketing, but there it is, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, they can put a nice design on buildings, but they can put it on a cookie, you know. Oh, and also here, there's something very interesting I recently heard, actually, which is a real report, let's say. Maybe you want to pull up images of, let's say, Vienna First District old buildings, or Vienna 7th District old buildings, or something like this. And look at the decorations, because there's always the question with the Tartaria theme, who created what when.
I forgot there's 23 districts of Vienna and there's 13. So that's so funny. I forgot the whole thing. Guys, just so you know how funny Vienna is, let's just look at it again really quickly on a map. Come on. Map. Because it's got this Starfort spirally thing going on.
Oh yeah, especially in the first district. I mean, you have to look at older maps, actually, because you can't really see it anymore because they tore down the wall.
You can kind of tell from this, though.
Yeah, here. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
You can see
it's super obvious. But if you look at a bit older pictures, 1 second, I'll look this up for you. Or you go on onb.at or something. Or just old maps. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I think I saw a cleaner one. There we go. That's not bad.
Yes. I mean, tell me, what is a Starfort if you've ever seen one?
Dude, and then you've got the court and the cathedral, right? The cathedral as above with the cathedral, so below with the courthouse. That's hilarious. I like that they did that.
And then what really helped me, because in Vienna you have many like old buildings, what I want to talk about, are older looking buildings where it's obvious they are not, 60s industrial communist style or something, even though there wasn't communism here, but you had socialism, whatever, So you have these modern blocks, and then you have these older seeming buildings. You recognize them because the ceiling is much higher always, right? And the doors are huge and the windows are huge. And what's interesting though is that, because I just did an interview along with that magazine with someone who's in the family of quite well-known, not architects, what's the guy who's actually building it? Builders? I'm not sure what is the name. The guy who, not the architect, but the guy who's executing the
construction workers?
Yeah, not workers, but those who do the whole thing.
Contractors.
And that's a nice generic term. And I was told the first-hand story that his grandfather was actually asked by Dr. Karl Lueger. You can look him up if you want. He was mayor of Vienna in, let's say, 1910. Lueger, L-E-R. Yes, you will find him probably. Yes.
So in other words, every American who's calling their German Luger a Luger, it's not a Luger that sounds like Lugi. It's a Luega. Okay, I feel better.
Yeah, Luega, and also, of course, Lügner. Lügner would mean liar, but this guy is called Lueger.
Lügner. I have to watch Jim Carrey's movie in German now.
So with this interview, he told me that his grandfather of Wohlmeyerbau, he was actually contracted by this mayor to, I think, if I remember correctly now, basically in winter when all the construction workers had nothing to do, he would gather them in his like factory or something and start building the decoration parts for Vienna city buildings. And this, of course, is highly interesting because it would mean that there are at least some decorations which we may assume are very old that actually are in this case from, let's say, 1910 or something, and they were just glued on top of the buildings, And I was already thinking I got to get a list or something of what are those decoration parts so we can, we can take them apart. I don't think, I think it's rather if you look at Vienna building decorations, 1910 or something, I don't think it will be associated with his name.
Still, these buildings, you can kind of get the vibe.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is everywhere in Vienna, and also
Right.
sometimes not only in the first district. And then I was confused, like the Starfort is only the first district. How is it possible? But even on old maps, you actually have the so-called Vorstädte, so the suburbs. So it may be that, let's say, until 1800, many of these really old, tall buildings had already been built, or also in the so-called suburbs. And then later Vienna started sprawling and started filling in all the gaps with the modern type of buildings. But this would explain where there's these seemingly old type and very high ceiling buildings in different districts. Yeah. So it's just an interesting point about the decorations. And then also, if you go back to Karl Lueger, just to this guy on the wiki, because I think it says even on his wiki page, it's the tab. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because also today he's called anti-Semitic, and this was just the first-hand story I was recounted, that apparently in this conversation also with the contractor or along those lines, they understood that Lueger for some reason didn't want to accept money from a certain particular community for whatever reason. I think exactly because they gave him very bad conditions. In this case, it was the, let's say, then Jewish financiering community in Vienna. And that from then point on, he was labeled anti-Semitic. And that's also where the saying he made came from, which was something along the lines of, whoever is a Jew, that's something that I decide. That's something he supposedly said. And this would just, in this case, I guess, refer to his, I don't know, not being very interested in paying high interest rates. But this is, how easily it can happen, just like today. If you don't conform with a certain control group, they may easily label you in a way in order to denigrate your standing. And now we have his image. We're stuck with this guy now until Andreas comes back. Guys. Yeah. So there was more things to bring up, but let's see if maybe I can take control of this. Yeah, I think I can actually do it. Let's see. We're gonna, yes. Oh, but I don't know about the sound. So I'll wait for Andreas to come back. Sorry, guys. Gotta wait for a second. All right. So we're back. Yeah. Andreas, you gotta unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, so here we got stuck with Karl Lueger. We didn't get the last part, but basically that's the whole story about the Vienna decorations of certain buildings, at least. So this is another thing then to uncover in terms of Tartaria, to be able to discriminate what is really old, what is how old. Yeah, seems pretty muddy thing, but I guess we'll muddle through eventually.
Rorian says, guess, shout out your favorite conspiracy. I think they mean you, Raph.
My favorite conspiracy, oh my God. I don't know, the Pope is a hologram or something along those lines.
That's pretty fun. Do they have the GIF? Oh, if I type GIF, that's a fun one. That's not the hologram. Where's the hologram? You gotta go to videos.
Or also there were those, I think with Fauci, where you could see like there was something wrong with his neck. I think we spoke about this, Andreas. I mean, these are just hilarious things. Or I guess the other part, what we also had already spoken about, that all the official supposed women that may actually be guys that are very famous. So, and I mean, with the hologram thing, so he disappears. Let's see.
Boom.
Oh, nice. Yeah, turned off the hologram. Just like what happened to the Queen, I guess, they just turned off the hologram. So
Boop. Would not be surprised at all, at least at the window, because it's easily a dangerous job. They could easily be hiding what he's, where if he's where he's really at or something like that. But yeah, I like the one Hitler isn't real. Not wasn't evil, wasn't real. Whereas the pictures, there's a whole thing. Hitler fake, hoax. That one's always good. There's always like, because his birth certificate, everything else. You've heard all these stories. He was created as a spy. There could have been an actor who played him when he was younger. An actor played him after jail. He had a bunch of body doubles. I like that one. I think that's a fun one.
Well, I mean, what's
didn't exist.
Even in the official story, it's interesting. Of course, it was an art school dropout officially, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, what's very obvious is, I mean, even today, even with Putin, we spoke about this. You look at him now, you look at him 5 years ago. Does he look kind of different? You look at Biden, you look at many of these guys, and I'm like, if I have a real power structure in the background, I'm not going to risk it on one biological entity. It's much too risky.
Right.
Every great dictator has known body doubles. Why should a supposedly democratic state do anything different, or power structure in the background, right? I think it's kind of naive to assume that. And so with with the Second World War, it's also interesting, he got in jail, and then I think officially even he wrote his book together with a Jesuit, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if you know about the story, Andreas.
Which one?
The Mein Kampf. I will look it up.
With the Jesuit?
The
What?
Jesuit, yeah. Here it says in Jesuits and Nazi Germany. Oh, and then even here, I'm just looking up Wikipedia right now. It's just very simple. Jesuits and Nazi Germany. And then it says Nazi attitudes to the Jesuits. And then first sentence is, Heinrich Himmler was impressed by the order's organizational structure.
I bet he was. Yeah, that's the thing. That's true. So there was I don't know about the Mein Kampf connection. I do know that the Jesuits were very important because of the Holy Roman Empire, and the Nazis were thinking of themselves as potentially the heir to the Holy Roman Empire, at least as the state in the Holy Roman Empire. And then they're like, whoa, we got to just take over the whole thing, because like you can't trust anybody. You got to that's the official story. Of course, who knows what's real.
And
But
did you
Pope
also know
Pius
that
XIII.
modern day Germany, according to rulings, from what I understand, is officially the legal successor to the Third Reich?
Well, I don't know. They're not living up to their reputation, maybe, but
Well, matter of perspective.
yeah, exactly.
What's the question? Who really lost the war? Of course, this is the other question. I mean, you're familiar
Right.
with all the stories, but then especially looking at the governments now in all of Central Europe, one would really wonder how anti-human can a government be, because they're literally willing, for example, to risk people freezing to death or whatever. I mean, it's not very humane, obviously. So,
did you ever see that movie, The Boys from Brazil?
oh, and this looks just like the CERN thing, right? The Black Sun.
There's a lot of, yeah, good point. Hold on. No, the logo thing. I mean, there's another one that's even better. Regardless, so Boys from Brazil. Have you seen that movie?
No, is it about the? Oh, I think you mentioned, but please remind me.
So basically, what you got is the Nazis after the war. Joseph Mengele is in Brazil. This guy, who's a Nazi hunter, Holocaust survivor in New York, is like, gets a call in the middle of the night from this Jewish kid in South America. It's like, I've seen him. Joseph Mengele is here in Brazil. And then the guy's like, I know Joseph Mengele is in Brazil. My dentist accountant knows that Joseph Mengele is in Brazil. Why did you call me at this hour in the middle of the night for something so obvious? So like, it's kind of inferred the Nazis are all down there and they've got a plan, because they keep finding these Indian boys with little blue eyes. And they're like, what's going on, man? So finally, we find out Joseph Mengele has been cloning Hitlers. He's going to try to seed the population with as many Hitlers as possible, and then give them all the same kind of conditions that Hitler had. Like, the father's taken away young, the mother, et cetera, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. And hopefully it'll make, 1 in 1,000 of these will turn out kind of like the original. That's kind of their goal. But as it goes on, Mengele has a harder and harder time because more and more, this is like the 60s and 70s. So 25 years later, so many of these guys have new lives, new careers. They don't care about the 30s ideology anymore. They're wealthy oligarchs in South America, and they're better off without the Nazis. And then that's what the Black Sun becomes. And it's a post-Hitler order that exists, right? And so the connections then to South America and these families, it disassociates itself at that point from Hitler. There's a lot of these guys who don't really think Hitler is so great because they think they're cooler or something. They think that he was,
and there's also always someone who set him up, right? So
right. There's also the whole thing with Trump. Like there are the people that really think Trump has let them down because he didn't go far enough. It's kind of a comparable thing in America right now. But of course, they try to make it that way. They want you to see things that way. But there are a lot of Republicans that are trying to say, okay, well, now we don't need the Führer anymore, right? We can just do our thing.
To point out something else that's maybe not so popular to say, but I think is well documented enough, is both. And I'm really not one for doing these kind of comparisons. But during both times, let's say the leaders then of Germany and now or then of the US, they both had very strong relations, let's say, to the, how do I put this correctly? Basically to Zionists. I mean, political Zionism is just ideology, and they both had very strong, very good connections. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's another interesting thing as well. Like the creation of the state of Israel was like the Havara agreement was agreed on by Germans in 1933. Nazi Germany and Zionist German Jews signed August 25th, 1933, finalized to move German Jews to Palestine, to the Anglo-Palestinian Bank. So, I mean, there was a number of these interesting turn of events that people don't like to really, it complicates the official narrative in a lot of ways. Hitler and Zionism. Why the Havara Agreement does not mean the Nazis were Zionists. There you go.
That's great.
Yeah. I'm sure they've got an argument, but this is, let me see. Twisted Road Agreement was immediately criticized on all sides. Disputable story. It's interesting when you look at pictures of the way Germany and Austria used to look back in like the 1890s, right? Because you get the idea of how sophisticated things were.
And this is what Vienna still looks like today in many streets, I guess,
Right.
because not enough of it luckily had been bombed, even though there were even civil war during the First Republic in, I guess, 1915 or something, or sorry, don't want to say something wrong now. But there were even during the First Republic in Austria, literally the political parties were fighting. I mean, just now that I'm thinking of it, it's almost, I mean, we had a literal civil war in Austria. It was only within Austria, officially, supposedly. But I'm just thinking how crazy this is that even in our history, there was a civil war.
Yeah, tell me about the Austrian Civil War, because I saw The Sound of Music and it didn't do it justice.
I mean, this is one of them, but this was more with the Nazis. There should be one civil war before that, where basically you had the I'll look it up for you, or yeah, Austrian Civil War.
When would it have been?
So go back. I think it was already there. It said like 1980 there, yeah. End of the empire, okay. Maybe just 1 second. Because I should know these terms.
Dude, there's so many funny names in Austria. Schattendorf. God, I love it.
Shadow Town.
Yeah. And it sounds great in English. It's kind of spooky. But Schattendorf sounds like a little midget that took a poop.
There was a town called Fucking. Right. But I think they recently, we just spoke about it, they renamed it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How do you spell it? Fuking,
Okay,
Austria.
with I think it was. Oh, now see they changed it to GG, and
Oh,
there's
but it was
spells.
spelled
Yes, yes,
Fuck.
yes,
What?
yes. That's what I'm
And they
saying.
stopped it?
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty stupid, I think.
That is dumb.
So
Dude, fucking Austria. That's I feel
o-
better now.
okay, so what I was referring to, okay, maybe this was actually the right time. I was somehow thinking there was maybe another civil war as well, but it was about Republikanischer Schutzbund. So Republican, 1 second, putting it to you in chat.
Very good.
So just to say basically that at that during this time it was normal, apparently, if this history is correct, that political parties had their own paramilitary organizations, and
Oh, of
then
course.
supposedly I'm not sure, it would basically be like, imagine the Republicans and Democrats in the US having their own paramilitary organization. I was starting to think. Anyhow, back then it was official, and they were apparently fighting each other in the streets of Vienna, so
Wow.
pretty insane. And that was the grand first republic, like first supposedly democratic state in Austria, and you had these paramilitaries getting so heated up that they were literally shooting each other. And then
Wow.
there's always the big story that in the buildings that the socialists had built, these big blocks, which are obviously not the old Tartarian buildings, that they were so greatly fortified. They were almost like castles because they were like these blocks, and
Right.
easy to defend or something. I mean, to me, any war is always very contrived, and I don't think anything like this occurs naturally. And who knows, maybe it was just another step to destabilize the nation, to make sure it proceeds as desired, and has to submit to Germany, or I don't know what the plan was back then.
You know about the firemen, right, in America and all over Europe too, but
You mean the firemen that?
yeah, exactly.
That's the
That's the
question. If firefighter, they fight with fire.
Oh man, did you
Do
watch
they
the new
fight
Beavis and
with or
Butthead?
against the fire?
Have you seen
I,
the new
I actually tried to watch it a bit because I really don't like this kind of stuff, but
Right.
I watched the first few minutes because I was like, I want to see what's happening.
Oh my God. I swear. Like, so usually similarly, and like I spent a lot of years trying to avoid Beavis and Butthead. And I think that was really just trying to avoid a part of myself. And I'll deal with that as time goes on. But with Beavis and Butthead, the new season, my God, what was the thing that we were just talking about that related to that? Oh, firefighters. So they're watching a video. I forget what it is. And they're talking about fire and firefighters, and Beavis is getting more and more upset. He's like, you don't even know, Butthead, like what firefighters, what they really are. He's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, they fight against fire. They're not firemen. They're anti. They shouldn't be called fire. Like, I love fire. I
Right.
thought firemen, good job. Started looking into it. Terrible. They just get rid of fire. They stop people from fires, and they hang out with cats. Like, I don't know. But there is that idea that there were firemen that lit fires, right? And if you look into the
Yeah, especially
1800s,
with what is it, the San Francisco fire, and then you just look at the pattern of the fire, and then, or even there, I think even in the official narrative, maybe it was John Levi, whoever who pulled this up, then they even said, I mean, just like with the World Trade Center, they say something along the lines of, yes, they had to pool all of those buildings, or, special emergency demolition to make sure that the fire doesn't spread further. I think that was the official narrative, no? The fire was so wild and somehow it could jump across the street. And then they said, oh, so that it doesn't happen, we're just gonna explode, all of those districts or something.
I wish these pictures of gangs were showing you the pictures of the firemen, because the fireman gang was one of the big gangs, and there's a bunch of gangs in every city. Indianapolis.
But that's the best racket, because if you don't comply, your house is gonna be on fire and no one's gonna come.
And not just that, like, because they're competing. There's the municipal fire gang, and then there's the metropolitan fire gang, and then there's the urban fire gang, and then there's the city fireman fire brigade. And so what'll happen is 12 different firefighters are racing to get to a fire first, and whoever does, if their group isn't there with them, they get a barrel and cover the fire hydrant, or they make it impossible to bring water to the fire by crowding it, so that the other fire
What?
team can't put the fire out, because they want to be the ones to put out a fire if there's a fire getting put out. You know what I mean? So they would just force people like, but my house is right there. And they're like, it's too late. You know, this was a major cleanup mission. Firemen could go and they could clean up parts of the city because you just burn it down.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, I would say this sounds completely insane, but honestly, I could imagine that scenario given what I've seen the last years. So,
Right. Don't get me wrong, firemen, like dangerous job, and but like, you have to imagine, why would you be a fireman in the 1800s, right? And so part of it is camaraderie and glory, and being part of that fraternity, and the kind of power. I mean, they own this giant series of equipment, and they ride around and everything. So the connections, it was a gang thing. I mean, people talk about, why do you become a fireman? It's because it's sexy. It's not because you want to stop fires. Let's be real. So the same thing with the police, like these police gangs that existed, like the New York Metropolitan Police, 1860. I don't know if I'm going to find anything, but you see examples of the police gangs, dude. These were thugs, like totally, completely. You know what I mean? On every
I
level.
mean, you
And then,
talk about that in this way now, but isn't this the thing that, government is just the most well-organized mafia with the best suits and the most,
yeah,
demagogic members, or
but
whatever.
the Irish Catholic quality to the police, being that they were Masonic Catholics in the Order of the Pug, put them in a special position because they could be excommunicated for what they were doing. The little things like that, just it ties America together. I don't know if you guys have the same thing. I assume that your cops have some sort of a fraternity or some sort of a secret oath that they take, but also our police are very different in different places. Like the California sheriff, far more occulty. California sheriffs are far more occult organization. I'm not saying this guy is necessarily, like, don't get me in trouble, but compared to, like, the California
Like
Highway
six-pointed star.
right, versus the California Highway Patrol, which is, like, I would say, I mean, well, this is apples and oranges, but it's a completely different kind of thing. Highway Patrol is like, I think when people think of sheriffs, what they should be thinking about is the Highway Patrol. It's a bit more scary. They're the horse riders. They're at the borders. They're riding all across the state. The Highway Patrol, they're the brown shirts. You know what I mean?
The Imperials.
Yeah.
Trade inspectors.
They're a
Tax collectors.
they're special kind of terrifying. And I have a lot of friends who've become police over the years from high school and things. And, I think there's something pretty rad about the California Highway Patrol. I mean, it's an interesting breed in of itself, but a friend of mine who was in it is in the Green Guard Fraternal Order. If I can find that police, secret police Green Guard. Okay, is that what it's called? Green U.S. Come on, United States of America. Coental. No. There's like a secret police. They have these secret police clubs, right? And about the secret, like the fraternal order of the police. That's pretty common. You can just be part of the fob.
Right.
But if there's like secret clubs, like the Green Guard, prison guards, is that how it's called? Like there's the Green Wall Gang. Is that it?
See, finally, they're so occult and secret that you can't just find them with a search.
Yeah. It's interesting, like secret society. What do I gotta find to type it in? Society. Green Guard Society.
No, it says India.
No. Well, there are some secret societies of prison guards as well, and those are associated with organized crime as well. I mean, just it's interesting to me, the connections between these fraternal orders and where you find them. That you find fraternal orders in the police, you find them in jail.
Yeah, well, everywhere where it's a relevant power structure, you put in a fraternity, and that's the old, circles within circles, right? You apply the same structure. Again, they were impressed by the Jesuits, this great organizational structure. Isn't this the same story even with the Bavarian Illuminati? Aren't they also even officially inspired by the Jesuits? I think this is official. So then to me, it just makes sense. And every important power structure you have, you put in something like this to make sure that if you need it, you can make a call, and yeah, to make sure the system stays in control. Oh, nice. Yeah.
We were talking about the DMLA yesterday. Was it yesterday? God, the days go by so differently when you do several shows. But Think Tank, we had Thomas from Paranoid American talking a bit about the DMLA and Walt Disney. And it's an interesting organization. But one of the things I find interesting historically about it is it started out, okay, obviously it's a Boy Scout group and you call your master dad. You don't say father like a priest, and you don't say, there's a couple other weird ones about it, but you call the leader your superior dad in the group. And
now that's a great start. So much for making sure the state is raising your children. Can it make it any more obvious?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there was the other thing Thomas was talking about that was interesting, was like how Walt Disney didn't believe his father was his father and thought that he was the bastard of a Spanish royal who was a vagabond who had come. So he had issues with his father and getting a new father through the Knights Templar. But it's named after Jacques de Molay, big old boy that he was.
The last one burned at the stake, no? Or the last master?
I don't know if he was the last master burned at the stake, but I know he was burned at the stake on Friday the 13th. I don't know if he was the last one. Does it say last somewhere? Last leader turned yeah, okay. Well, so I would argue this point because the thing is,
official Wikipedia
exactly.
last,
right. Yeah. So I mean, it's the Knights Templar. Then you've got them in Scotland and everything else, and then there's a number of other examples of this too. And this idea that there's this Christ bloodline from the Sinclairs, which is from, I don't know, giants, or I love that Jesus is a giant. Or a Sasquatch. Jesus is Bigfoot is actually pretty fun. It's one of the earliest videos I made, by the way, and turned out to be like the thing that people are interested in now is the Bigfoot bloodline. But he was the 23rd Grand Master. So 23 is the 23 Enigma everyone's obsessed with. I've been trying to push 23. Everyone's all about 19. I'm telling you, dude.
But just because you mentioned the giant connection, and before we spoke about the Gaelics and red hair, isn't red hair also associated with giants usually? At least the most known giant fables I know of usually involve red hair.
Dude, don't type in giant redheads on YouTube. What was I doing? That was a really bad idea. I'm gonna have to fix that later. So I mean, giant redheads, Egypt, something like that. No, Peru, something like that. Yeah, I know. So it's my own fault. But yeah, giant redheads in Peru. Is it moderate search yet? Cover your eyes, internet. There we go. This is all I was trying to do. Life is hard. So this is, the idea of the giant redheads, Homo capensis. I should just type in Homo capensis. Giant redheads. What was I thinking? So,
or you could just put in what's his name, Prince Charles X-ray or something. No.
Oh. I wonder if is there something there? If we try that.
I mean, I wonder if his X-ray is official, but I'm just saying, like, I'm not sure with his, but there's some of the royals that really have strange skulls. I mean, and some individuals in general that still exist. So
yeah.
These elongated skulls, basically,
I bet you could do elongated skull X-ray. Something. Some people do have longer skulls, yeah. That's true. That's a bit long.
Or it was a Rothschild or something like this, or a Rockefeller that really had a face like this, So
there you go. Kind of reminds me of Nathaniel Rothschild's head.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's we talked about this a bit the other day. The idea that there's what's it called, head binding. Is that what it's called? People who come from cultures where we found giant redheads
Right.
bind their skulls. There are the royals that bind their skulls. Wait, this is too good. I'm sorry. Oh, people bind their skulls. And there was a wiki article, artificial cranial deformation.
So with the assumption that they would try to emulate what they would perceive as the greater being or something.
I feel like saying artificial cranial deformation instead of just head binding is kind of like saying like non-consensual genital mutilation of children instead of circumcision. You know what I mean? Like just pick a lane. I don't know, but okay. So Alkanhun King Kinglia from India. Okay, so we've got elongated skulls in India. Maybe not, but I'm pretty sure that's what we're looking at here. Yep, there we go. So elongated skulls in the east, elongated skulls in the west, elongated skulls in the general middle area.
In the meantime, Aurorian donated 10 Canadian dollars, I believe.
Oh, my favorite. They're so pretty. Thank you for your money.
Can I see more of those redheads?
No. Yeah. I mean, not here, but yeah, you can. But God, go to the Discord or something. Oh, I need a rumble. No, I mean, that'd be hilarious. Imagine you did that at CNN or something, right? And all of a sudden, like, oh, boobs. It's like, it's just such a Midwest news move. My bad, guys. My bad. I could have been worse. Of all the things you could have been forced to see, you can't complain too hard. Yeah, I mean, the elongated skull from Bolivia compared to the elongated skull from Sogdia. Dude, did I just really read that? Afro-Siab? Okay, so another interesting correlation. Afro-Siab. Wait, no, that's not the version I'm looking for. Let me see here. Afro-Siab is also the name of like an important there we go. Mythical king and hero of Tehran. Elongated skull guy from the land of the elongated skull people. That's good. The Shahnama, but written by Ferdowsi, the Afrasiab king and hero and an arch enemy of Iran. He's also an alchemist. He can practice kinds of magics. Yeah, but the idea of the elongated skull, that's pretty interesting. Finding the elongated skull in Sogdia. So you've got Persia, Iran, South America, and these are all supposed to be the more natural ones. You can see the ones which aren't. I think this guy probably, I can't be sure, but this is deformed skull. You can see the ones where people deform their skulls, and this is in the Alemannic North Germany.
And even here, just because it's so obvious in Alemannic, even there it has two ways of spelling it, with an E or with an A. And before we saw the AE confusion. And then especially if it's Alamanic, it's literally almost like Allah man, again. So we're back at the museum.
Yeah, where is this?
Württemberg. That's in Germany somewhere.
The north somewhere. So you got elongated skulls of Vikings in the north of Germany along the coast. Celtic Clanai boat. More examples of giants in Germany. Celtic redhead giants in Germany. Or whatever Celtic means. Latin, the Latin, I guess. We're going to have to.
And also connecting it back at the same time, witches are often associated with having red hair as well. Both giants and witches.
Redheads are apparently paid less. I've heard someone was pointing out. I guess because there's just less jobs as clowns. Just kidding. No, I love all the redheads. I kid the redheads.
In South Park, they always go on about it. No, ginger, right?
Yeah,
ginger.
But it's funny because there's 1% of the population or less that are redheads. A lot of pretty redheads, and smart redheads, and so it's kind of a funny stereotype or prejudice that South Park makes fun of. But it's fair because it's like it's an ultimate minority.
right? But with these things, I always wonder if there's not something more behind it as well. You know, just like we discussed, what is the common denominator, or why redheads and giants? Why not black hair and giants? And why witches and
Well,
red hair? And yeah,
discrimination against people with red hair goes way far back. Acute in United Kingdom, in the same way that brown people are treated poorly in Venezuela, right? You know, there's like a scale. The same can be said about redheads. Japanese people have problems with redheads because they think it means a mixing. Not anymore, but that used to be. All of the witches and demons had red hair in Japan. But then, of course, Indonesians have evil redheads, and that's because they didn't like the Dutch. So that's a little bit more obvious and a little bit more honest, probably, about its origin. Natural red hair can appear in people across Eurasia, and the manifestation of a gene mutation, a weaker child here. So you can see often this happens when blonde and black hair come together. You get like redheads. Ancient Egypt, men with red hair may have been used as human sacrifices to the god Osiris due to the belief that his arch enemy Set had red hair, and that those with red hair were therefore devotees of Set. Interesting.
Yeah, but also here, where does this come from? Because there must be some. I refuse to believe it's only because it's 1% and people are bigoted. I mean, that's okay, but there must be something.
Well,
like some real
so
grudge for
Set's
some reason.
associated with the Jews, right? He's the foreigner's god, and the red land and everything like that, and the black. So there could be an association there with the Hyksos, Akhenaten, and Moses, and therefore hating they were taller too. And there's all these pictures. So Thomas was showing us, I think, pictures of giants being captured in Egypt, right? And that this is so a period of capturing the giants, and maybe the giants were not as big as the 36 foot tall eating.
Here someone says Genghis Khan had red hair.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone, and this comment is held for review. It says Muhammad was a ginger.
Yeah, that's true too.
And
Yeah. No, these are both true things. So you can look at, is this what the recreation of Genghis Khan? Stop it. No, that's not what Genghis Khan looked like. This is what Genghis Khan looks like. Cast this kid in the new Anakin Skywalker Genghis Khan movie. But yeah, redhead Genghis Khan. I'm not going to do a picture of Muhammad because I already did a big giant redhead, and I think that's 2 for 2. But the red beard, the red, what's it called? Like when Amans wear the red turban hat, the fez thing, even the red fez, that all refers to the redhead of Muhammad. So
they are red too. Oh, right, of course they're red.
Yeah,
right.
Red fez. Boom, always a red fez. And then the Muhammad red head. I'm gonna get in trouble for this, so let me just avoid pictures for a second. No, not Reed head. Kiora, how about you guys? No, he was invisible. He was the sign of truthfulness. What do you want from me? I don't know what they're going to say. But yeah, there's a reason. I don't know. I'm going to avoid it. We'll avoid the subject. I mean, it's true. It's true. What are they going to do? They're going to be upset about that? Probably. What you got here?
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure if I had sent this to you before.
Oh,
really
I love the
interesting.
Who. Yeah.
Oh, you know them. Okay. Yeah. Anyone check out this song. Really well done. And just make sure you turn on CC, even if you just let it run in the background. Because I think the lyrics are really great on this one. Because apparently you just means how strange. And yeah.
Dude, who the heck shoots in a 3:1 aspect ratio? This is ballsy.
Yeah, but it's pretty good, I think.
Oh yeah, I love it. No, I'm for it. I'm just, I love the ultra wide aspect ratio. Dude, Mongolia. Are they Mongolia? Am I wrong?
I think in Mongolia. And also check out the symbolism on their guitar, which just as you point out in your history revised, how symbols get co-opted. Basically have swastikas on their guitar, basically.
Oh yeah, for sure, right? Yeah. Yeah, that was an interesting thing too, because you look at so it always comes back to, oh, but we know the real original intention of something, like, so the swastika is this ancient Hindu symbol. But then you've got the other side of it, which is like, doesn't matter where things came from,
Right.
here we are now. And so, but then we're back to, if we're here now, how do we get out of it if we don't know where we came from? Like, how do we know where we're going? So I don't know. We got to get past all the hate as soon as possible, but also
Indeed.
acknowledge that people are living in fear. Yeah, this is sweet.
Absolutely. Yeah, anyone check this out. It's really great. It's like modern type rock throat singing. So and I think the lyrics are really great too. That's why I said the CC. It's really worth checking out. It's, I think, smart lyrics.
Oh, the lyrics weren't
Well
playing.
done.
That's what's going on. Oh,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
what's going on. Sorry. Hold
And
on.
is there even sound if you would put it on, or you don't
I
want
think
to? Because
we
it's
we get a copy strike. I'm already
right.
probably getting in trouble just for showing this long of it, but it has been so long, eating and drinking, been merry. How strange and strange. I didn't know that they had the English translation. Taking our great Mongol ancestors' name in vain. How strange, how strange. Interesting. Yet would not honor our oath and destiny. How strange, how strange. Why the valuable ethics of ancestors become worthless. How strange. Hey, you traitor, kneel down. Hey, prophecy be declared. You're born in ancestors' fate, yet sleeping deeply can't be awakened. How strange, how strange. Blindly declaring that only Mongols are the best. How strange, how strange. Born to live as nobles, yet can't unite as one. How strange. Why is it difficult to rise our nation up? Hey, traitor, kneel down. Hey, prophecy been declared. Wow. Why is it so hard to cherish the ancestors' inherited land? How
So I'd say
strange.
pretty much like a reset song. So it's pretty well done, I think.
Yeah. Pretty amazing. Someone says, look up Princess Skoda, daughter of Akhenaten.
Oh yeah, that's also the whole thing Michael Tessarian goes on about all the time, is this connection between Ireland and Egypt. I think he calls it the Irish origins of civilization. And then supposedly in some tomb or whatever in Egypt, they found Irish talismans or however.
Nice.
So yeah, there is this connection.
The story of Princess Skoda, the princess married not Marinatin, the African roots of Ireland. In 1955, archaeologist Dr. Sean O'Riordan of Trinity College, Dublin, made an interesting discovery during an excavation of the mounds of hostages at Tara. Don't you know? Site of ancient kingship of Ireland. Bronze Age skeletons remains were found at what has been argued to be a young prince, still wearing a rare necklace of faience beads made from a paste of minerals and plants extracted that had been fired. The skeleton was carbon dated to 1350 BC. Nice. Very, very Akhenaten. And Moses. Stone and LFC Thomas reported that the faience beads were Egyptian. In fact, were compared with Egyptian faience beads. They were found not only of identical manufacture, but also of matching design. The famous boy King Tutankhamun was entombed around the same time as the Tara skeleton, and the priceless golden collar around his mummy's neck was inlaid with matching conical blue-green faience beads. An almost identical necklace was found in a Bronze Age mural mound at North Moulton, Devon. Lorraine Evans, in her compelling book Kingdom of the Ark, reveals archaeological connections between Egypt and Ireland. Evans argues that the connection between the two distant lands were plausible, and there is archaeological evidence to support the theory. In 1937, in North Ferriby, Yorkshire, the remains of an ancient boat were discovered. While thought to be a Viking longship at first, continual excavation produced additional ships wrecked in a storm. Why is this not like way more famous, this story so far? Who sent me this? I need to give you credit. Shameful dude. Yes, thank you. So further investigations show that the boats were much older than Viking ships and were of a type found in the Mediterranean. It was concluded these boats originated from 2,000 years before the Viking Age and were radiocarbon dated to around 1400 to 1350 BC. Hold on, just Egyptian boat. Okay. Okay. All right. Viking boat. Okay. Wait a second. Okay. Yeah, I could see how that'd be confusing. Basically the same thing. Yep. All right. Brutal. Nice. Nice. Okay. Evans made the connection to argue that these boats could originate from Egypt as the time frame fits the date of the fine speeds. That's just this is a good article. I like it. While investigating the origins of the people of Scotland in the Bauer manuscript, the Scotic Chronicon, she discovers the story of Scota, the Egyptian princess and daughter of a pharaoh who fled from Egypt with her husband Gathellos, with a large following of people who arrived in a fleet of ships. They settled in Scotland for a while among the natives until they were forced to leave and landed in Ireland, where they formed the Scoti, and their king became the High King of Ireland. In later centuries, they returned to Scotland, defeating the Picts and giving Scotland its name. The Scotic Chronicon is a 15th century chronicle of the Scottish history by the Scottish historian Walter Bauer. Is a continuation of John of Fordun's earlier work, Chronica Gentis Scotorum. The National Library of Scotland has called it probably the most important medieval account of early Scottish history, noting that it provides both a strong expression of national identity and a window into the worldview of medieval commentators. Evan then posits the question, was the Tara necklace a gift from the Egyptians to local chieftains after the arrival, or was the Tara prince actually Egyptian himself? According to Bauer's manuscript, Scotta's descendants were the High Kings of Ireland. In her quest to discover the true identity of Scotta, it was not an Egyptian name. She finds with Bauer's manuscript that Scotta's father is actually named as being Achencres, a Greek version of the Egyptian name. In the work of Manetho, an Egyptian priest, Evans discovers the translation of the name. The pharaoh Achencres was none other than Akhenaten, who reigned in the correct time frame of 1350 BC. Evans believes that Scotta was Meritaten. Yeah, okay. Meritaten, eldest daughter of Akhenaten and Nefertiti. Princess Meritaten. The third eldest daughter, Ankhesenpaten, married her half-brother and King Tutankhamun, son of Akhenaten, and his second wife, Kaya. The controversial religious shift to the god Aten caused conflict with the Amun priesthood. We've heard this story, as you guys recall. After Akhenaten's reign ended and he disappeared from history, this conflict is rumored, and the rumored death by plagues would have been sufficient motivation for the pharaoh's eldest daughter to accept a foreign prince in marriage rather than being Tut's wife, as would have been normal protocol, and to flee the conflicted country. Yeah, especially with the Yuya, the Hebrew aspect of this story being a foreign family in the pharaoh, that might be a time to evacuate. What happens to Scota and her people? For this, we must return again to the myths of the people inhabiting Ireland at the time, the Tuatha De Danann, the magical children of the goddess Danu. It was they who originally established the site of Tara in the Boyne River Valley as the ritual inauguration and burial place of the ancient kings of Ireland. They were generally regarded as the gods and goddesses of the Celtic tribes, but it is believed that their true origin dates far back into prehistory. In the Annals of the Four Masters, dating to 1632 to 1636, Scota's husband is named Eramon, and it is Eramon and Eber who divide the land of Ireland between them. Eramon in the north and Eber in the south. What is interesting to me about this version is the similarity between the division of Ireland and the division of Egypt itself. Egypt was divided into Upper and Lower Egypt, unified by a central connecting city, Memphis. If we consider the existing myths of Ireland's legends, it too was divided to have a central site of unity, known as Milde, the Ophalos of Ireland. Within Mead, known as Mead, Theophilos of Ireland. Within Mead is where the hill of Tara is situated as a site of high kingship, representing the unity of the land and all its people. Sadly, it is in the battle for Ireland at Slievemish, as recorded in the Labor Gabala. I'm so sorry I don't speak Celtic. The Scotta meets a tragic end and is killed. After her death in the battle, the war continued on at Taltine against the three kings of the Tuatha de Danann. The husbands of the goddesses Banba, Fadla, and Eriu, Macquil, Macacht, and Macgreen, the sons of Mill, after prolonged battle, conquered the Dananns and took the seat of Tara. According to the Bauer manuscript, Scott was buried between Slib's Miss and the sea, and her grave, Fert Scotta, is found in a glen located in Glen Scotta. The exact location of Scotta's resting place remains a mystery, much like the particulars of her past, which are slowly being unveiled. As with many myths, a real person lent her person and identity to the landscape of the land she became a part of, given Scotland its name. Okay, so Caledonia, Scotland, Scotta princess. Mary, what was it? How do you spell it? Mary Totten.
I also sent you the Amazon link for Michael Tessarian's books because he wrote a lot about these Irish origins of civilization and many
nice.
other. Do you know about him actually, or not so much?
Yeah, I haven't read his books yet, but I've been hearing his name more and more.
Yeah, so he was like the guy in 2010 or something where I first even stumbled across this idea of, like proper symbolic studies.
Right.
Starting
He had
off
some
with
cool
sets.
videos.
Yeah, there it's all more located still in the far distant past, but who knows, many of those things, may have occurred actually more recently.
You've seen his face. You know his words. He talks about magic and he has a slight accent. It's great. I like it. Yeah. But one of the things though is I never heard I've always talked about the Egyptian connection. You look at the boats, you look at the symbolism, the lions, everything like that.
Right.
But I hadn't heard this Mary Totten story, which is just it just fits the piece so well. I love it. I wonder where was Mary Totten? Somehow I didn't do the Mary Totten search earlier, like a couple months ago or whatever, when I was looking into Akhenaten. Mary Totten, ancient Egyptian royal wife of the 18th dynasty of Egypt, she who is beloved of Aten. Wow. Okay. Does there a tomb? Okay, and just the regular Amarna. Okay. Mary Totten, Scotland. I wonder how many more did you meet? No, Mary Totten, Scotland. I mean, it makes sense. And Mary being a name of a character, essentially, that's pretty wild. And the African roots. So, I mean, this is a pretty well-known story, it looks like, at least to some extent. Is this accepted history or not? It looks like it wasn't quite accepted by Wikipedia yet.
I don't think Egyptologists yet jive with the official panels, but yeah.
Man, it's so obvious though. There's so many links. I mean, if you do kilts in Botswana, like Botswana clothing, and you start to see like the patterns and techniques. If I only could find back like tartan.
Pushkin Castle writes Mary Tartan.
Right.
And while it may seem hilarious, I'm often like, everyone really got to investigate those closed letter links, because it really seems that this is one of the codes that's being used, how everything then seems so unrelated when actually everything is so hyper related.
Yeah. I mean, so the royal grid patterns that represent your family are so important. You have to imagine that you can tell everything about a person by their gown, how wealthy they are, what class they are, etc.
This
But
is
even
another thing that Mario Bras, whom I showed earlier, actually goes into, apart from the language, is the coat of arms. and that he's even able, by looking at completely foreign coat of arms of Greece or wherever, he can basically tell in a way who's firstborn and so on, of course, but also which county had seen battle, who submitted willingly, who's the royal line, who's the second line, and all of that. So, and it kind of makes sense. But then it would almost seem as if these coat of arms maybe were the stamps when the most recent civilization was subjugated or something.
Yeah.
And and then they handed those out or something like this and put the history on top, like, oh, you submitted willingly, you get a good status, you were trying to F us over, we make sure for the next 300 years you always get put to the backside. Because it really seems to me as if geopolitically there are these like century-old grudges even, which at least to me I can't only put down to the French tell bad jokes about the Germans.
Well, I mean, you look at this, you got the yellow and gold, you got the gold and blue, like the Ukraine colors again, but you got the justice from the tower of justice, right above the crown or the helmet, which, so it's this Lord Protectorate level. So this means this was like a forced event. And then the shield, the top right, you've got the white kind of representing, and it's all on top of fall, right? This is like probably happening in August to November, that there is a battle that one side wins and the other side lost. And that area now is a distributed kingdom under a protectorate. So I mean, who knows, there's probably like way more than that, but that alone you should be able to grab just from that. There's another one that just, what's the new,
and of course the faceless knight, where many say it's a faceless knight, the armor,
right,
where you don't know who's the party in the back actually. Oh, this
dude,
looks like a Targaryen.
You could put a CD-ROM in there, and then you'd really have a modded helmet. And the rose is fun. Who doesn't love the Fergian cap on a dragon? And that tail, dude, that guy's adorable. That kind of reminds me of Jim. You know what I mean? Like, it's a Kincaid. That's a Kincaid Griffin, I'm pretty sure. Well, okay, so there was King Charles heraldry. They just did the new heraldry. Let me see if I can find it. So they're trying to come up with what it's going to look like. I don't know if it's
the one with the biohazard sign is a good one.
This is real, I think, on Wiki Commons. This is the royal monogram of Charles III, Duke of Brabant. This is a real one, not even a joke.
Wow.
Yeah.
What must this guy have been up to that later they get the official symbology to mean that?
Let's do. I mean, am I confused? I think it might be. Is it not? Yeah, it is. It's just one of his titles.
It's really...
Yeah. So, and that's important because so many people are going to want to be like, or is it like a Queen Elizabeth heraldry? Is that the right term? Am I screwing this up? There's another. It's like this. I'm looking for the one that's like an ER with, there we go, girl. That, yeah, get it, girl. So she's got the 2 for herself in between the E and the R and the crown. And this symbol, you might not like her, you might hate her, but all over England and Scotland and Ireland and Wales and a lot of other places I've been, like Bermuda, there's this sticker, all over the everything. And they're not going to get rid of it because she's dead. They're going to leave it up wherever it's been up, except for like, the new helmets, anything new, they're going to put the new Charles logo on, and it's not going to be the bio sign.
Did they even coronate him yet?
Didn't they?
We should know by Game of Thrones now, at least, that, coronation is very important for legitimacy. And I'm pretty sure it is still, plans.
Ascended the throne.
6th May 2023 is when they want to do it. Okay.
Oh, really? But that's just the coronation ceremony, because technically, because the way it works is when the person dies and the next person who's supposed to be, they automatically assume the position. This is why the president of America, if he dies, the vice president assumes the position immediately, right?
Right. But still, I've always find it curious if there's all these protocols. I mean, he didn't even properly sign or something in the beginning, no? There's all these strange things happening, so...
Yeah, and that is interesting because he could turn it down, he wouldn't, but, you could think about it like that. But theoretically, I mean, it's a complicated issue because it's all about whether or not the government is going to pledge allegiance to the king, and they will. I mean, they've been well programmed to be excited about it. I don't think anyone's really that excited about King Charles, and they know it. Like, King Charles has been psychologically already left as a nebbish in order that people would accept all of the totalitarianism of the queen. But now we're getting ready for like 2026, 2028, when King Charles is already going to be replaced, right? Like, he's not going to be that.
But isn't there even a prophecy of him like being the last king or something like this? I mean, there's always these prophecies: last king, Black Pope is the last pope, and so on.
Yeah, I don't know. I think is it King Harry? Is that what we're expecting? Right? No, King William. Yeah, he's a king in his own right, but you're gonna see King William the what, 4th? No, 6th. How many kings deep would he be? But yeah, I think you're gonna see his kingship probably in the next 4 to 5 years, right? And but simultaneously, while that's happening, Harry is taking over like kind of the underground, the underworld, the other side of the world. There's the as above, so below. So he's trying to become the kingpin, I think, is really what's going on. And all the more interesting, I think, that is Banksy, because it says a lot about what they're trying to do.
Do you have because I heard this theory before, you have solid proof. Are you convinced of that, let's say?
I mean, I'm pretty convinced. I'm Banksy, don't prove it. I don't know. Like, let's see, I'm Banks. Let's see, the Banksy, Prince Harry, and Prince William said he was, right. That was the main thing. William said he was Banksy. I think they're both Prince Banksy. Yeah, Prince Harry William. I admit I am Banksy. Jokes he's the anonymous graffiti artist before surprising you. OAP at nursing home. Prince William jokes he's anonymous graffiti artist at his royal mother's nursing home. Right after he was in Oakland at the same time as Banksy when I was there. And then let's see, Banksy is Prince. Does it say that? Graffiti? Someone did it at some point.
Even there, his background looks interesting wherever he's standing and talking.
Which one was that you saw?
No, the first image.
Yeah, this is where he said I'm Banksy in front of the Picasso, right? At the museum. So I don't know. So the thing is, I'm convinced that whoever is Banksy is a group of people, and that they're royal fund. I think Banksy's Shakespeare. You know what I mean? And
right.
So
could just be funded by them or whatever, you know?
Yeah, I mean, but it's still, in that respect, Andy Warhol had 100 people taking pictures of Chairman Mao and screen printing it and selling them as his art, right? So yeah, it's still an Andy Warhol. So
overall, it'd be a grand chess move if they have control in this way, because it's all about culture creation, you know, and it would be smart, right?
To be able to do that, you have to have money. You have to be protected. I mean, there's a reason why he's called Banksy, I think, is another reason, you know, because he's got the banks. And it was in order to have street credit without having the moniker of being, because, you know, you want to be a self-made man. That's an exciting thing.
Yeah.
And your mother's dead. So Banksy, Princess Diana art. Tell me that's not like your mom. just I mean, the Mary Poppins stuff. Like, I mean, dude, come on. Like, there's so many little references. I don't know. Do I know? No. Am I convinced? More than I should be.
No, I see your point,
dude.
And again, for me, the red flag is just that Banksy, that everyone knows whom we're talking about when we say Banksy, which already makes it more likely that it's, you know, somehow psyop. So
absolutely. I mean, Banksy.
The only thing I really remember, I mean, they're not really commenting on everyday things. The only thing I remember is with Palestine or something, which is interesting unto itself, or I think where they had some graffiti, but I'm not sure about their political stance actually, or how it would factor into the grand chess board.
Very V for Vendetta. You know, the Lord and Protector over the democracy, like the Republic with privilege over the democracy. Let me see if I can find. Is this the Chernobyl one? Yeah. So Banksy went to Chernobyl. Think about some of the places. He does art in Disneyland, Chernobyl, downtown London, on the side of a police station.
Because you have to get in and get out and so on and so forth, and
right,
not caught and not get fined. How
and officially, he's got like 10 people that go and install the thing that he's done in some sort of a warehouse or something like that. Also, so there's, that's the thing. It's another Dread Pirate Roberts kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think it's the other thing is how many people laugh at it makes me think it's true. Also, the fact that people think it's so impossible that these kids with money who are like, Britney Spears and Prince Harry, was it when they were dating? Prince William. Yeah, there was a whole
Didn't you talk about Britney Spears' brother or something? Was that you?
Did I know? What about it?
There's also some crazy rabbit hole, but not sure I want to get into it.
Who's Brian Spears? What? Yeah. Who's Brian Spears, man? Accused of trying to control her for years before her dad. Okay, so another handler. Yeah, there's definitely something weird about them. They've got to be some weird Mayflower English Puritan stock related to maybe, if not Sir Francis Bacon. Yeah. Edward de Vere. Who is the guy who Edward de Vere lived with? Cecil. Yeah, like, so isn't there like a connection? Britney Spears, William, Cecil. I think the Spears family are connected to the Cecils. I don't remember where I saw that, but there's a thing there. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. And there's another, that's the other thing with Princess Diana. Princess Diana is Spencer, Diana Spencer. And so the Spencer name, Scotland Yard, Spencer Jack the Ripper. The Scotland Yard detective who was in charge was her great grandfather, Richard or Robert Spencer. I forget which one. I find that. I don't know. Spencer, Scotland Yard. Search only for Spencer. Frank Spencer, maybe? Lord Randolph Spencer, right? Randolph Spencer Churchill, right?
Churchill,
yeah. So, yeah, the answer, 1888, heyday of Queen Victoria's reign in a gaslit street of London, when a young woman's horrifically mutilated body was discovered in a tawdry slum and streets in the rundown Whitechapel area of London. On the evening of the 31st of August, 1888, the body of Mary Ann Nichols, a common prostitute, was found prostrate on a pavement in the Whitechapel district in the east end of London. She had been brutally hacked to death, her throat having been slit and devastating cuts to her torso, revealing her exposed internal organs. She was to be the first of a series of 5 victims of the now legendary killer, came to be known in folklore, Jack the Ripper. So why does everyone remember Jack the Ripper? It's not that big deal, right? 5 people, 5 prostitutes. I mean, clearly people do this all the time. We're hearing about it all the time. Why do we still remember 1888, right? Well, sorry, what did you say?
No, I want to know.
Oh, well, because Jack the Ripper is a bastard royal, but we'll get into that. The so-called Ripper murders came under the jurisdiction of London Metropolitan Police Force, in particular an inspector by the name of Frederick George Aberline, who was tasked with overseeing the investigation. It's important to note the diaries of Frederick Aberline did not see the light of day until 70 years after the unsolved murders, being in the possession during this time, firstly of Walter Sickert, the famous artist of the time, and latterly of Joseph Sickert, his son. The full significance of this will become apparent later. Walter Sickert had been employed by the royal family in 1880s to provide private art lessons to their son and heirs, Prince Albert Victor, the Duke of Clarence, and otherwise known by his colloquial name, Prince Eddie. Eddie was in fact the eldest son of Albert Edward of Prince of Wales, later King Edward VII, and Princess Alexandria, later Queen Alexandria, the eldest grandson of the reigning monarch. Queen Victoria and the oldest brother and the older brother of the future King of England. King George V, and as such would eventually have been first in line to the throne. Unfortunately, Eddie was not in the best of health. He had been born mainly due to centuries of royal inbreeding, partially deaf, and of well below average intelligence, and was thus shunned by the majority of his cold-hearted family. Here's a picture of Jack the Ripper. I mean, Eddie. That's Eddie. So he should have been King of England, Jack the Ripper. Okay. Go back there. As well, did I skip anything?
But you do know about the whole replacement story with, I believe it is Prince Harry or Prince William, that there was someone who claimed to be the actual son of Princess Diana. You know,
yeah.
There's always those things going on.
Camilla's Electric Secret Son. This guy, right? Yeah, this could be
Camilla's
real.
song. I think actually, Diana's son.
Oh, there's a third. Diana has a third son, maybe.
Yeah, or that basically the whole claim went along the lines that basically was the real son of Diana and Charles, I guess, and was replaced in the middle of the night. I'll see if I can find it.
That'd be interesting. I guess that wouldn't be implausible. That's the kind of thing that happens. But I mean, I kind of tend to think at least William is her son. You don't think you think Harry is? Is that what you're saying? That Harry might not be, or both?
Well, one of them or both of them. Unfortunately, of course, now quickly I can find it, but it went along the lines of that there was something right, and the story went that there was something that it wouldn't comply with or something, or wouldn't go along with as a child, and then was kind of mentioned, yeah, well, if you don't go along, you're gonna be in trouble or whatever. And then supposedly, officially, he got replaced with the son of some lower lord or something. And they made the switch when he was like 6-7 years old or something. And yeah, I mean,
that could happen.
It definitely could happen, you know, if I forgot the exact reasoning. Maybe someone, James
Prince
Hewitt
Popper
is
right there.
Harry's real dad. James Hewitt. Let's see.
Prince Harry slams making him suffer as a child. I don't know. I'm curious. That would explain a lot. Why he had to step out and why he has to be like, all right, well, you're not really the prince because you were the replacement for the show, just as a backup. I could kind of see
right. That's the other potential, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that going down. Well, okay. So Queen Victoria, the reigning monarch at the time, was a great supporter and patron of Freemasonry, as well as all the royal males of the age, as they still are today. Indeed, it was the Saxon-Coburg-Gotha family, the current British royals, that had sponsored the rise of Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Illuminati, originally a Freemasonry offshoot in Bavaria in the 18th century. Weishaupt was born and raised in the Bavarian town of Gotha. It is a little known or reported fact that there are several Masonic lodges in the Royal Palace of Britain, the most significant one perhaps being the Royal Alpha Lodge in Kensington Palace. In 1885, Prince Eddie was initiated into the Royal Alpha Lodge at the behest of his father. As well as his membership in the lodge, Eddie was a regular customer at a homosexual pedophile brothel in Cleveland Street, London, and indiscreetly investigated a series of explicit love letters with a young boy employed at these most vile of premises. The well-known Satanist Aleister Crowley had these letters in his possession for many years, but eventually they were lost or more likely destroyed and have never since seen the light of day. The incident alone had the potential to become a huge national scandal, if made public, but events took a turn for the worse when it was discovered that Eddie had also made a young Catholic commoner of Irish descent by the name of Anne Elizabeth Crook pregnant with his child. Eddie also, as it turned out, had foolishly married her in a clandestine church service, and in this effect barred him from ever becoming king, as British royals are not permitted to marry Catholics, let alone one who is deemed to be a commoner and bearing a child conceived out of wedlock. In 1883, Eddie's mother, Princess Alexandra, had asked the young painter Walter Sickert to introduce Eddie to the artistic and literary life of London. Sickert's studio, where he spent most of his time, was at 15 Cleveland Street near Tottenham Road, in North London. He duly introduced the teenage prince to many of the area's bohemian types, including the theatrical friends he had made when, for 4 years, he had been a minor member of the Lyceum Theater Company. Sickert also introduced Eddie to one of his models, a pretty Irish Catholic girl, the aforementioned Annie Crook, who lived nearby at 6 Cleveland Street and who had worked by day in a local confectioner's or tobacconist's shop. They fell for each other, and according to Sickert, went through the 2 clandestine marriage ceremonies, one Anglican and one Catholic. Soon afterwards, due to Annie's pregnancy, her employer needed someone to deputize her during her confinement. Walter Sickert was asked if he knew anyone suitable, and after consulting friends, found a young girl by the name of Marie Jeanette Kelly from the Providence Row Night Refuge for Women in Whitechapel. For some months, Mary worked alongside Annie Crook in the shop, and the two became friends. In due course, on the 18th of April, 1885, Annie gave birth to Eddie's daughter, Alice Margaret. And when she returned home, her new friend, Mary Kelly, moved in as the child's nursemaid. Mary also worked as a prostitute in the evenings to supplement her meager income. Naturally, Eddie absolutely enraged the establishment with his illicit marriage, and this combined with the incident of love letters threatened to tear apart the monarchy and sparked a constitutional crisis of major proportions. So, as is always the case, the monarchy set in motion a huge cover-up operation as part of the damage limitation process. Annie was kidnapped from the small apartment in Cleveland Street in which she lived, in which Eddie spent time with her. And at the same time, Eddie was abducted into a carriage headed for Buckingham Palace, where he was instructed in no uncertain terms to stay until further notice. Unfortunately, fearing the worst, Annie had already given the child, Alice, to Walter Sickert for safekeeping shortly before she was forcibly taken to Guy's Hospital in London. She remained there for 5 months, and while she was there, Sir William Gull, the Queen's personal physician, performed a partial frontal lobotomy.
Oh my God.
It gets worse. In effect, rendering her docile and compliant, and thus easily controlled by these human monsters. Subsequently certified insane by Gull, Annie lived on for the rest of her life in institutions, spending her last days in a lunacy observation ward of St. George's Union Workhouse, Chelsea, and dying there in obscurity in the early 1920s at the age of 57. This was not the first time that Sir William Gull had been implicated in a scandalous royal cover-up operation. By the by, let's just do really quickly JFK sister lobotomy, in case people think this is like unusual. Rosemary Kennedy and her disastrous lobotomy. Yeah, this happens a lot. They do this to their family members when they gotta. Around 20 years prior to this, the Prince of Wales, future King Edward VII, the father of Prince Eddie, had been involved in a series of extramarital affairs himself, one of which was with the young Lady Harriet Mordaunt. One day, she foolishly confessed to her husband, Sir Charles Mordaunt, and she had been unfaithful with several men. One of them had been the Prince of Wales. Sir Charles was absolutely incensed, and he let it be known that he intended to sue for divorce, citing the prince as a co-respondent. The Prince of Wales was rightly nervous about giving evidence in court, as it would bring shame upon the entire royal family and cause an unacceptable scandal, plus it would cost money. So at this point, Queen Victoria herself interceded on the prince's behalf to protect the reputation of the family and instructed Sir William Gull to intervene. Gull immediately, in consort with several other doctors, conspired to have the young woman declared insane and locked away in a lunatic asylum, where she spent the last remaining 37 years of her life in abject misery, dying in 1906. Ultimately, the case was dismissed, saving the prince and the royals from acute embarrassment, and no divorce was granted, not because adultery was unproven, but simply because poor Harriet was declared insane. However, to return to the main story, the matter might have ended there, but for Mary Kelly's greed. Back in Whitechapel, Mary had befriended 3 other local prostitutes to whom she boasted of her royal connections. In the spring of 1888, the quartet, led by Mary, hatched a plan to demand money from Walter Sickert, threatened to otherwise make the story public. Being a simple girl, she had not fully comprehended the fact that she was in effect also holding to ransom a group of psychopathic murderers who would literally stop at nothing and had the means to kill with impunity whilst enjoying the full protection of people in high places. Sigurd immediately passed word to Eddie, who informed his father, and the Prince of Wales discussed the threat in great secrecy with trusted fellow Masons in the Royal Alpha Lodge. Subsequently, a special meeting was arranged at the lodge by the Royal Masons, known as the Princes of the Bloody Royal, whereby they agreed to form a hunting party to literally hunt down and kill the hapless girl as punishment for her sheer audacity, and significantly as a Masonic blood sacrifice ritual. I don't know about that part, but maybe. The hunting party was drawn exclusively from the Royal Alpha Masonic Lodge and included Sir William Gull, Eddie's former Cambridge University tutor, J.K. James Kenneth Stephen, and Sir Charles Warren, Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, who took no active part in the killing, but who helped facilitate the plot and expedite the cover-up. To drive them about their sordid business, they recruited a coachman who had previously betrayed Prince Eddie's indiscretions to the royals, one John Netley. Warren provided what information he could on the girl's whereabouts using his privileged position in the police force, and Sir William Gull prepared grapes injected with opium, which would be offered to the victims to subdue them so that the dastardly deed could take place with a minimum of fuss. It was arranged that John Netley, the coach driver and particularly nasty character, was to be the getaway driver, and the lookout would be J.K. Stephen, a cousin of Virginia Woolf. Really? Virginia Woolf, you know that book too? Virginia Woolf.
I don't know enough about her, but I would not be surprised.
There's also a band. There's just so much going on with Virginia Woolf. I'm gonna have to get.
And even
hungry
just
like
the name Wolf itself, it's
Yeah,
a
right.
famous name.
Yeah, it's true. There's something about the Virginia Woolf, though. And another Freemason with royal links, whilst the murders were planned to occur within Gull's carriage, away from prying eyes. It should be noted that Aberlene's diary confirmed that the modus operandus was not that of one person only, and that the murders were planned and performed according to Masonic rituals similar to a fox hunt. These are facts which were never allowed to come to light. Okay, well, the fox hunt part's true, at least. So who was the ringleader of the murderous gang? None other than the prominent Freemason Secretary of State for India, the leader of the House of Commons, and the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Esquire, Lord Randolph Spencer Churchill, father of the future Prime Minister Winston Churchill. Churchill was not only the brains behind the entire operation, but he was also personally responsible for the cutting of Masonic emblems and symbols into the bodies of the victims.
And did I get this right, that this guy was most likely related to Diana as well, with the Spencer thing?
Right. That's what, yeah, that's what comes up. Okay, so the symbols into the body of the victims, while the skilled surgeon's hands of William Gull performed the organ removal. So the emblems of Masonic rituals, this is what they're talking about. So the cutting of symbols into bodies. You're familiar maybe with the girl who George Bush Sr. was cutting symbols into her, right?
No, luckily I'm not.
Bush, fox hunt, cutting symbols, bodies. You've seen Nexium, and Nexium does that. I don't know if I can find the whole thing. There's a lady there's a lot of these stories. Girls wake up naked, tied up behind their backs, and they're being chased by dudes on horseback. And Magog carved his symbol into, there's all kinds of, this is a thing. So we don't have to go too deep in that, but at very least, here it is. The killings and mutilations were not observed by the public simply because 4 of them were not carried out in the streets where the bodies were found, but in a moving coach, while the last was perpetuated in situ in the victim Mary Kelly's own room. The police must have been aware that the bodies had been moved to the resting place due to the lack of blood, as the whole pavement area would surely have been awash with blood had the rituals been performed there, with organs spilling out all over the place. Obviously, though, the fact was never publicly disclosed before the police. And so people were just told this is just this horrible thing. They weren't really given all the details. The assassins set about discovering the blackmailer's whereabouts with insider help from Warren, and then systematically plotted their executions. The ritualistic murderous spree began on the 31st of August, 1888, with Mary Ann Nichols as their first victim, and continued with the killing of Annie Chapman on the 8th of September. In turn, each woman was lured into a coach, then killed and mutilated in the ritualistic way that the 3 Jews, Jubela, Jubelo, and Jubilum, the murderers of Hiram Abiff in the King Solomon's Temple, were executed in the old Masonic legend. Their throats were cut across, their bodies torn open, their internal organs deftly removed, and arranged around their corpses in their final resting place, and their entrails thrown over the left shoulder. On the 30th of September, there were 2 further killings, but on that night, things did not go smoothly. As the murders were dumping the night's first victim Lizzie Stride in Burner Street, they were interrupted and had to abandon her corpse before its ritual mutilation had been completed. More alarming still, the night's second victim, Catherine Eddowes, was, according to Xirtus, almost immediately discovered to have been killed in error. It was learned that the poor Catherine had for some time lived with a man called John Kelly. Really? Had often used his surname, and so had been wrongfully identified by the gang's underworld informant as blackmailer in chief Mary Kelly. The mistakes nearly led to the group's undoing. In their mistaken belief that this was to be the climactic final episode of their campaign, the group had already arranged Catherine's corpse more completely mutilated than any of her predecessors. In Meter Square, significantly Masonic, opposed to the Masonic Temple and opposite the Masonic Temple and close to the Whitechapel Road, they had chalked on a nearby wall a Masonic slogan to act as a postscript to the whole sordid affair. Aberline copied it down into his notebook, and it said, "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." Arriving on the scene suspiciously quickly, Sir Charles Warren, to the acute surprise of his underlings, ordered that the chalk epitaph, presumed by observers to be in the killer's hand, noted by Aberline to be that of an educated man, should be immediately washed down and erased. The reason he gave...
Spakeface says, so these kill rituals started on August 31st, same day Diana died.
Dude, you skipped to there's a spoiler.
Oh, this is spoilers?
No,
Okay.
I'm just teasing. No, that's fine. But yeah, no, keep that in mind. All right. Does it not sound familiar? I mean, but I'll admit it. I did want to at the end just flash a picture of Princess Diana and be like, do 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 do, but okay. Yes, thank you. Yes. Educated man, erased. They have to erase. Okay, yeah. Immediately washed down and erased. The reason he gave was he did not want anti-Jewish sentiment to be inflamed, but Xirtus suggested the real reason was that too many insiders would recognize the message referred not to the Jews, but to the Jew was or Masonic legend, and would therefore identify the killers as Freemasons. See? After this setback, there was a pause of more than a month, the longest interval between the killings, whilst the group redoubled their efforts to find the real Mary Kelly, who was by this time lying low in fear for her life. Meanwhile, rumors of the killer's association with Freemasonry and with the royal family continued to grow. It was not until the 9th of November that Mary Kelly was finally tracked down. To use the coach again was deemed to be too dangerous now, so she was dispatched in her own Dorset Street lodgings, more bloodily mutilated than any of her fellow conspirators, her throat slashed, her body brutally cut apart, and her intestines arranged around the room. There is in existence a police drawing of the last person to be seen with Mary whilst she was alive, and this bears an uncanny resemblance to no less a person than Lord Randolph Spencer Churchill himself. Of course, this particular lead was never followed up by the Masonic-controlled and run Metropolitan Police. J.K. Stephan, again, according to Aberline's diaries, actually went to the police, made a full confession, and surrendered himself in a fit of guilt. But, of course, no arrests were made. Stephan was also released without charge, while Aberline resigned his position with the force and retired forthwith as a direct result of his disgust at the inaction and cover-up on the part of the police. Indeed, there are still files in existence in Scotland Yard that had been sealed forever to prevent the truth from ever being revealed. Stephan himself suffered a complete mental and physical breakdown shortly after the attacks and died a sad, lonely death in a lunatic asylum in Northampton 3 years later at the age of only 33. Right?
Right.
I mean, this goes on, so we probably don't need to go too deep. We could actually do this another time. But I mean, because I think we're probably 2 hours deep or more, right? Where are we at? Yeah,
well, but this is how you become prime minister later, no? I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I should probably further legacy. of this sordid affair was the payoff for the Spencers was 2 terms as prime minister for Lord Randolph's son, and 2 generations later, Lady Diana Spencer would be conditioned to become the wife of future King Charles III. Meaning, of course, they're not quite royal enough yet, but we can get you an heir that a couple generations deep would be acceptable for the royal family. So your kids would become, you'd be assimilated into the royal family. And that's how the cookie crumbles. So yeah, let's see, did it say it here too? August 31st, Spencer becomes the wife of future king. His brother Harry, only famously discarded once she had fulfilled her wifely duties in providing her highly desirable genes to produce an heir and spare, and eventually being brutally and ritually murdered herself in 1997 in Paris. Okay, so there's a couple more things here. I don't know if it's gonna eventually get to it. I guess I could cover it another time. But the thing is, the daughter was not just put in an insane asylum, the bastard heir, because remember, Eddie and this Irish woman had a baby. That baby was eventually discovered. The people that were keeping it were killed, and the baby was put into a mine to work in the coal mines. And so I think she made it to about 17 or 21 or something like that, but like bald on the top because of carrying stone boxes, wooden crates full of stones on her head, and had been somewhat lobotomized. So another example. Hey, Halloween, right? Happy Halloween, like a terrifying, scary story. But nobody tells you the real story of Jack the Ripper. And yet everybody talks about Jack the Ripper. Like, why? You know what I mean? Just get it done.
Well done, Andreas. Thank you. Well, this is important because, again, we find all of those memes, they never occur randomly. There's always a backstory. And I think the linkage, I didn't know the Spencer connection. But I mean, that really seems as if all the post-reset nation states are basically built on blackmail. I mean, because if the Commonwealth and so on, they're as powerful, half as powerful as they supposedly are, I mean, and they, in programming language, you say you make a child, how do you say that? Like they fractalize their fraternity structure from the Royal Alpha Lodge to, just as you mentioned, the police fraternity. And that's how you have a nice control system running,
God, yeah. And then the fact that like the bribe is that you can lose yourself in the royal family, that you could, your genes, if you work hard enough and you're through Darwinism, you can eventually lose yourself into having become part of, you can be the stock to keep them going. Like,
prospect, yeah.
Brutal. Well, I mean, I think we're deep in this. I'm going to show them your links where they can get some of your stuff. You had said that there's some stuff that you were working on, though. I want to show that if there's anything.
Oh, well, this what's recent. That's something German. This is what I will just show when it's done. It's just a magazine. You get it when it's done. It's gonna be pretty cool. And who knows?
Legit.
Expand. But here, what I wanted to show mainly is if you just go on the bottom and on the YouTube link, and then so everyone interested in go on. This is strange. Yeah, virus of alienation, the 4th video. Just to show everyone who's interested in, I want to say interested in eugenics. No, but it's like
the beginning of 20th century, we were just 1.6 billion people.
Yeah, so it starts with
Now,
Sadhguru. You can pause them again. Just to set up the stage, because actually some friends inspired me, because in some circles he's really famous with his Save the Soil campaign, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I know that this guy made strange statements, so I found him, and then I basically made a contrapoint. Let's say those who believe in overpopulation and germ theory, and those who have an opposing view, and just, I'm not even putting my own opinions in there. It's just clips of different individuals from, John Lennon to who knows who else. And at the very end, of course, I have Yuval Noah Harari versus, in this case, Alexander Dugin. It's the very last segment. And I think there it shows just so beautifully this strong opposition between any ideology that still contains any type of respect for the soul, also as Dugin puts it, and his idea of, oh, we're just going to produce minds and bodies, you know. I mean, it cannot be more obvious than this. And so these two counterpoints are kind of what I made this this collage from, let's say. So
epic. Yeah, I love it. Is this from the talk I did or a different one?
No, of course, this is from you. This was one part of the inspiration, and the other one was Sadhguru. Then I found the great, you know, different cool clips by Aaron Russo and some stuff about biology, to really like show the difference. And I especially love, maybe just show Yuval Noah Harari. Let's see, let me see. No, further on truth. It's a further part. Sorry, it's earlier part. Where he's in the studio. No, next. Sorry, guys. Here, yeah. Maybe just play this.
12 months or 7 years. Like, why do you think we as people are so vulnerable to misinformation?
You know, the truth is painful often, and the truth is complicated. Scientific reality, if you look at the epidemic, for example, to just understand what a virus is, it's such a complicated thing. A virus is not even a living being. It's not an animal. It doesn't eat. It doesn't reproduce by itself. It's really just a piece of biological code, genetic code, that has the amazing ability to infiltrate our body, hijack the mechanism of the cells in our body, and tell the cells produce more
love him or hate him, he
copies
at least
of
tells
me.
you how it is. Come on, like, can I get an amen?
No, but the thing, I mean,
And
maybe
that's
just
how it
just
goes viral. More
play
and
the last 30 seconds of him just to show that's basically what
At the end of the talk or at the end of the...
no, at the end of what he's saying there. It's almost done. Yeah.
produce more copies of me. And that's how it goes viral. More and more copies of this code going into the nearby cells and nearby people, and you have an epidemic. Now, this is such a strange thing, a complicated thing to understand.
It's so complicated, you have to understand.
It's much easier to believe that, you know, there is
He literally
some
just
group
said
of
it, though. It took,
billionaires
like, literally a sentence. That was always like, it's the genes that can hack you. Come on. I could say it in less words.
who created this thing in some laboratory in order to take over the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's not any easier to believe that. I mean, because they kind of go in conjunction. It's like, it's an alignment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it was just nice, and anyone can just watch it, because the next clip, I really kept the part about biology short because I didn't want to upset YouTube, and I was surprised that even those statements I put in, they take no issue with, apparently, and it's not my statements anyhow. But anyone who will keep watching it the next 3 minutes will understand why both of the things he's saying is both absurd control tactics, actually. But of course, what they always love to do, it's so complicated. You know, it's dead, it can't do anything, but it has this amazing ability. I mean, even if you just really listen to what he's saying, just from that point of view,
he's
it's
really
like
excited about it.
Really amazing, and it's really magical. And I understand that he really would love this to be true. But yeah, everyone can, you know, make up their own mind about this. So yeah, thanks.
Guys, you know, you can both find the video. If you go to his YouTube, make sure you go to Act Like You Know 26 and you subscribe and click on the bell. I can see the numbers growing, so I appreciate that you're doing that. Also, you can go to Commencey and then that'll get you a list of all of the things he's working on. But even more crazy, if you go to the Discord and you click on is it Sync Tank or video? No, it's Neuropa. Is it in Neuropa? We've got, where did it go? Did I screw that up? No, is it opening? Is this the right window? Cool. Accept invite. Is it going to lock me out again? Every friggin' time. But yeah, in the Discord, you can go and all of the posts that Raphael makes now on YouTube. And if you do your Twitter, it's going to go automatically to the Discord. So you can just, where is it at? Neuropa. I think it's up here. Media shows. Where is it? Shows. Neuropa. Boom. So then there you can, all these things.
There we go.
Yeah. So you should be able to get all the content as it comes out. So that should make it easy for you guys to find Raf's videos and also share them, because he also has videos that are in German. So if you know people that that can help get the message to quicker, then that's a great way to do it. So yeah, dude, Raf, thank you for being here. Can't wait to
Thank you, Andreas. Thanks, everyone.
Dude, some Tartarians.
Tartarians.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarian.
Hey, everybody, tune in.